My mom literally stole my student refunds and practically committed fraud by impersonating me just to get this money. But now I'm out about $2,000 and I'm scratching my head wondering what I should do next, because at this point I am seriously at a loss. Here's what's going on. I'm a 23-year-old male and I made a dumb mistake whenever I asked my mother to help me set up my school account last year. I live on my own and I pay my own bills, and throughout this past year, I've seen my older brother get several refunds and assumed that this was because he has a scholarship. I don't have any scholarships, but I do have Pell Grants which cover more than the cost of my tuition. Recently, my brother's refund went missing and he confronted my mom about it, which made me curious about whether or not I get them. Well, it turns out when I checked my refunds, they were set up to deposit into my mother's Cash App account. The total amount over the past year is over $2,000. I also realized that she's been impersonating me by secretly signing into my email and messaging the refund department back in August last year to ask when the refunds might hit my account, and signed the email with my name. I called the Student Success Center, who informed me that the deposit info was manually entered in August of last year, and they confirmed that all the deposits had successfully reached their destinations. I then called my mom and played dumb, asking if she knew anything about the refunds, and while she said no, I confronted her, and it's here that she just kept trying to come up with excuses about how Cash App misplaced the funds. The next day, I asked to see her Cash App monthly statements for September of 2024 and for January of 2025, and when I did this, she got really mad at me and refused to do so. When I suggested that maybe the money was sent to her Chase bank account, she spammed me with screenshots of every single transaction she's ever had on that account, literally over 500 screenshots. At this point, I'm just so done, and I don't know what to do. I don't want to pursue litigation against her or throw her in jail, but I'm seriously lost. I changed the passwords to my account and removed her as a proxy, as well as changing the deposit information to my account. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that she probably used my refund money to go on vacations. This is seriously terrible timing because I just broke my ankle and I can't work, as well as Christmas literally being right around the corner, because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, personally, I can understand why you wouldn't want to pursue some kind of legal action against your mom, but holy crap, if that was me, I would absolutely be doing something about this. I would be telling her straight up, you can either return the money you stole from me, and that will be the end of it, or else I'm gonna escalate and make your life very miserable. Because think about it for a second, she stole money from you, and I don't know about you or anybody else, but holy crap, $2,000 is a lot of money, especially in today's economy, bro. Dude, I need that money. I'm not gonna let anybody take that money and then sit there and be like, oh, well, I guess it's just something that happened. No, bro, your mom committed fraud. There's no way I would personally ever let anybody do that to me. If I knew about it, I absolutely would do something about it. So sure, I completely understand your situation where you're like, okay, I'm just gonna change my passwords and be done with it. But if that really is the path you're gonna take, then you better promise yourself that you will never give her any kind of money in the future. Because if she can do this once, then holy crap, she is absolutely willing to do that again. And that, in my opinion, is very unfair for you and not something you should ever put up with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor to address her husband's creepy behavior instead of policing my clothing in my own home? Because apparently this guy is reporting back to his wife that I'm wearing scandalous clothing while I'm literally working out of my own home. And at this point, I'm really pissed off and I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I was doing yoga in my living room yesterday morning, wearing leggings and a sports bra as I often do. I live alone and I keep my curtains mostly drawn for privacy, but I like to leave a small gap for natural light. Well, mid-stretch, there's a furious pounding at my door. I open it to find a woman I've never seen before who introduces herself as my next door neighbor, who I will call Sarah for the sake of the story. Without so much as a hello, she launches into a tirade about how I make her uncomfortable and that I need to cover up. And honestly, I am utterly confused. I asked her what I've done since we've honestly never interacted before. And it's here that she says her husband has seen me doing yoga half naked through my window and it's inappropriate. I then glance down at my outfit. It's a standard workout gear with nothing scandalous going on. I tell her that I'm not sure why her husband is staring into my windows, but that sounds like an issue she needs to take up with him and not me. She then sputters that I'm being immodest and disrespectful to the neighborhood. I counter that I'm minding my own business in my own home, and it's completely inappropriate for her husband to be spying on me and reporting back to her. I suggest that instead of policing my wardrobe, she should have a conversation with her husband about respecting neighbors' privacy and not being a creep. She then accuses me of trying to seduce him and threatens to report me to the homeowners association. Now at that point, I've had enough. I tell her that her insecurity insecurities and her husband's wandering eye are not my problem, and I will not change how I dress in my own home just to cater to a peeping Tom. I then shut the door on her sputtering face. So now, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk here. I may have been a bit harsh, but I'm tired of being told to cater to the male gaze in my own safe space. And frankly, if she's more upset about my yoga pants than her husband's behavior, then they have bigger issues than my fashion choices. Okay, this is some crazy behavior because good lord, instead of this lady like going to her husband and being like, why are you staring at women through their window? She actually goes to the lady sitting in her own home and being like, you need to change your clothing. It's like, bro, what is going on right now? I'm in my own house, letting a little bit of light in come in through the window so that I can like enjoy the daylight for once. And you're actually gonna come up and act like I'm the problem when your husband's looking through her window? Like, dude, what is going on? That is so weird. And also, just so people are aware, wearing leggings in a sports bra is not scandalous. That is normal workout wear for women. Like, what is going on? Especially in their own home of all places. Like, you have absolutely no say in what I can and can't do. And I really hope that lady does report the original poster to the homeowners association, because I can't wait for that meeting where it's like, yeah, my husband was looking through her window and he saw her looking really scandalous and wearing like basically nothing. Like, that's going to be a hilarious conversation because there is absolutely no grounds for any kind of punishment. It's not like the original poster is standing naked in front of the window and being like, hello world. Like, that's not happening. They're literally just working out. Meanwhile, your husband's being a creep and like looking through her window and being like, oh wow, look at her working out. This is crazy. So no, you're definitely not the jerk because you have absolutely done nothing wrong. Today, I was forced to literally do everything by myself at the front of house at our restaurant, as nobody else was there at work, leaving me high and dry to figure it out. But at the end of the day, I ended up getting a 1-star Google review, all because a table walked out because I couldn't get there in time. And now I'm wondering what to do next because right now I'm very frustrated. Here's what happened. Okay, so today I opened the restaurant completely by myself. I was everything too, by the way. I was the server, the bartender, the barista, the hostess, the food runner, and the busser all rolled into one. Within the first part of service, I already had 9 tables, including 2 7-tops. I was sprinting around, greeting tables, making cocktails and coffee, running food, bussing tables, taking orders, and doing all the opening tasks. But then a new table comes in. I greet them right away and I say, hey, I'll be right back to take your drink order, but just as a heads up, I'm the only one here right now. They all nod like they understand, but immediately, the guy at the table has an attitude. First, he asks to be moved because it's too loud, and I say to him, okay, fine, so we go ahead and move him. But then he asks again to move to another spot because it's still too loud. Meanwhile, I've got 7 different lattes balanced on a tray for other tables that are already waiting. Before I can even circle back to take his drink order, the dude just stands up and walks out. And as they're leaving, I apologize again and remind them that I'm running the entire floor alone. Well, fast forward to the end of my shift and I get a 1-star Google review. They claim that they waited forever, that no one came by to the table, and that the service was terrible. And it's like, I literally acknowledged them and I told them that I was by myself. I was clearly running around nonstop, but I guess some people just don't care and empathy is optional. My god, humans can be so unnecessarily miserable sometimes because honestly, I did everything right. Okay, I want to say first and foremost that I feel bad for you and I'm so sorry that you went through this, but also there's a bigger thing going on here that I just don't think's being mentioned. Where in the world is your manager or anybody else? Why are you running this entire restaurant by yourself? Seriously, this is a management problem. This is not a you problem. It is next to impossible for one person to run the entire floor. Seriously, this is some crazy behavior in my opinion. Your manager quite literally left you high and dry and did nothing to help you out. Like, good lord, did everybody call out sick and then suddenly like the manager's on vacation? What's going on right now? Why is no one there to help you out? Like, I can pretty confidently say this is a massive red flag for your job, and if I was in your shoes, I would start looking for something else immediately, or at least tell my manager, hey, I'm not sticking around if you give me that kind of shift again, because I cannot handle all of that by myself, and it's insane that you think I can. Like, holy crap, they're running 9 tables with 2 7-tops by themselves. And I'm not just saying like taking the orders and bringing it to the kitchen. Like, that's not too bad for 9 tables. Like, that is manageable if you're organized and you know what you're doing. But to then be expected to be the bartender and the hostess and run the food and clean up everything at the same time, like, dude, you have no time for anything. What is going on right now? So no, you are not at fault here. Like, that 1-star absolutely goes to your manager in my opinion. And I think if I was in your shoes, I would probably print off that 1-star review and leave it on my manager's desk and be like, this is what happens when you leave me by myself. I can't do this alone. Don't do that to me again. Because truly, you should not have been in that situation in the first place, and that is absolutely not your fault. My entitled job literally demands that I stop wearing any kind of scrubs or athletic wear at work, all because I'm patient-facing with my job and that I need to have a more professional appearance. So I decide to maliciously comply by dressing in a way that quite literally makes them double back on their decision, forcing them to allow scrubs once again because apparently I was displaying just a little bit too much of my physique. Here's what happened. To start things out, I'm a guy who recently moved from working inpatient all the way to an outpatient clinic. For context, I've always worn scrubs or joggers or athletic shirts, something loose and comfortable and perfect for the job. It's easy to clean and no one ever commented. Well, during my interview, shame on me, I didn't clarify the attire. Considering the position is in the same organization and my job title remained the same, I figured the clothing would remain the same as well. That being said, when I started at the clinic, I kept the same wardrobe. 2 weeks in, my manager told me I needed to follow the business casual dress code because the clinic is patient-facing and requires a more professional appearance. In fact, she specifically said that my gym clothes weren't appropriate. I then politely reminded her of my hands-on clinical role, namely injections, wound care, patient care, which seemed to contradict wearing dress clothing. And obviously, she did not see it my way. And just for reference, I hate business casual. I used to work in finance and I refused to ever succumb to the corporate life ever again. But anyways, that day I went out and I bought some standard chinos and button-ups. I even sized up the pants because I'm not stupid. I know chinos fit differently. However, I'm a bigger guy. I lift regularly, I run, and baggy athletic pants or scrubs do a lot when it comes to hiding your physique. Chinos, even sized up, do not, and my assets front and back were on full display. Well, on day 1, I got a double take from the staff of the front desk. On day 2, a coworker made a comment about my pants working overtime, and by day 3, I had heard at least 4 different remarks, some joking and some just awkward conversations. It wasn't harassment in my opinion, but it was definitely noticeable that my clothing had become a topic of conversation. My supervisor played professional, but I could tell she was well aware of the comments. A week in, she approached me and said the clinic was revisiting the dress code for clinical roles, and asked if I'd prefer to go back to scrubs for comfort and practicality. Well, I smiled and said I was just following the business casual policy. You know, the one that she'd made me follow, but sure, I'll be happy to switch back if that's what she wanted. Well, at the end of the day, an email was sent out saying that scrubs are now approved for all clinical staff. I'm now back in my joggers, and honestly, this is problem solved, even if I had to do some silly stuff to make it happen. Okay, I think this is hilarious because good lord, this guy literally said, oh, okay, I'll wear the business casual, but it's gonna be skin tight and you're gonna see everything. Like, holy crap, that is hilarious in my opinion. So yeah, good for you for playing the game and getting exactly what you want, because it sounds like your boss and pretty much everybody in charge was being stupid and they were being really difficult for like no reason. My coworker had the pettiest of revenges with our tantrum-throwing boss, as he made our boss go crazy in a way that he never even realized. And honestly, it was a great thing to watch. Here's how it went down. To start things off, our boss was a petty tyrant. He would do things that put us in a difficult situation and then yell at us while blaming us for the hassle. Best of all, he was an impatient man-child. My coworker, who I will call Tom, was stuck in the office more than I was, and I really feel bad for that guy. But Tom's petty revenge was driving our boss more insane, and yet our boss had no idea he was doing it. Now, our boss had the nice big office up front. The printers were in the back, and Tom and I sat in the cube farm between them. The boss would print something out and then quickly and impatiently sprint to pick up what he printed, and he was always so hyper-focused on getting that printout. Most times, the laser printer would spin up and our boss would move from his office, but it's here that Tom would get up from his cube and get in his way. He would walk slowly to the printers, or he would be carefully carrying a cup of coffee that was filled to the brim, or waddling awkwardly towards the bathroom. Sometimes he would even do that awkward side shuffle thing, where it's like, oh, which way are you gonna go? As they literally are trying to dodge each other. But Tom never got it right, and they ended up running into each other every time. I watched this happen whenever I was in the office, and you know what? Tom was doing this multiple times per day. The best part about it is that our boss had no idea, but his blood pressure went up every time he went to retrieve a printout. So truly, thank you, Tom. Against all odds, you made that place just a tiny bit more tolerable. Okay, I love this so much because holy crap, I can't stand bosses like this. And I'm sure you know the kind I'm talking about. They cause all these massive problems, they're difficult to work with, they literally set their office up for failure and then scream when no one can handle it. Like, that's a nightmare to deal with, and I honestly cannot stand people who act like that. So good for your friend for getting some revenge, because honestly, this kind of person absolutely deserves it. My niece moved in with me after she had an argument with her parents where they essentially kicked her out after she didn't want to pay $300 more in rent. But now that we've got her set up and figured out her expenses and got her signed up for community college, college, my niece's parents are pissed off at me, saying that this is all my fault, despite the fact that I'm literally just trying to help her out. And now I'm wondering if I'm the jerk or not because this is getting kind of weird. Here's what's going on. A few months ago, my 20-year-old niece, who I will call Charlotte, called me up saying that she was kicked out after an argument with her mom. She was saying that she was already paying $500 per month, and they were asking her to pay another $300 while not charging any of her siblings anything. I called her parents to get their side of the story, but it's here that my brother immediately said to send her back because his wife didn't mean it when she told Charlotte to get out. Now, after a while, he did confirm what Charlotte said about having to pay, but tried to justify it by saying that she could afford it because she was working and that their car insurance went up because she was in a car accident, ignoring the fact that all of their kids have been in an accident of some kind, including one of them totaling their car and causing significant damage to 2 others, and then being given a new car 2 weeks later. Well, I told Charlotte that she was more than welcome to live with me and the girls. So we went back to her parents' house, we packed her stuff, got all of her important documents, returned her car, and took her back to my house. I got her a bank account that's only in her name, I loaned her money so she could buy a somewhat new car, and I helped her enroll in community college. She's studying early childhood education, she teaches a mommy and me class once a week, and she babysits up to 4 days a week. Before she agreed to move in, I told her she was going to contribute, but nothing like her parents. She pays me $250 per month in rent, and this goes directly into an account that's only going to be saved and invested for her. She has access to the account, and she also pays $100 per month for groceries. She also gets $50 per month from the school for groceries, so she really only pays like $50 if you think about it. I split her car insurance with her, which on her new plan comes out to about $170 per month, with her share being about $85. I loaned her about $4,500 for her car, so she's paying me $150 per month to pay that off. Gas is also around $80 per month, but she gets another $50 per month from school, so now it's about $30. We then talked about how much she makes from her class and babysitting, how many hours per month she needs to work to cover her expenses, as well as how much she will work so that she can have some spending money and money put aside in case she has a bad month. Now, Charlotte still speaks to her siblings and was talking about living with me and paying for herself and learning how to budget, and it's here that I found out her parents are furious that I'm the one that convinced her to move out over paying rent when I'm having her do the exact same thing. So seriously, I need to know, am I the jerk for having her pay rent and other expenses in my own home? Because right now I'm kind of baffled and I don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, no, you're definitely not the jerk. And I think how you're going about doing this with Charlotte is way better than what her parents were doing. They pretty much said, oh, you're gonna pay $300 more, otherwise you can get out. And it's like, holy crap, what are we doing here? That is a weird ultimatum to start off with. Instead, the original poster is breaking it down and saying, okay, we're literally investing in your future. I'm helping you get started. We're getting you on your feet. Like, this is gonna work out. And from the sounds of it, her parents are finding out that you're actually organized when it comes to this, and you're treating their kid with some semblance of empathy, and they clearly don't like that, so now they're pissed off and they're like, wow, you're showing us up. Not because you convinced Charlotte to move out, but because you're showing them that, yeah, this easily could have been taken care of in a more responsible and adult manner, instead of giving an ultimatum and being like, oh, you need to get out, you're not doing what you need to. Like, that's crazy. There's no excuse for that. So no, you're not the jerk, you didn't do anything wrong, and you definitely didn't convince her to move out. Like, that's crazy. All you did was offer her a place to live and say, hey, if you hate it there, come live with me. We'll figure your life out. And from the sounds of it, it's going really well. And if you really boil this down, it sounds like the parents are pissed off that they're missing out on like $800 a month. And in reality, they could care less about Charlotte, which is really a big problem in my opinion, and I think you helped out in a really dire situation. My girlfriend and I are breaking up, but I honestly feel like I'm making a mistake since she told me that the way she acts is the way that every girl acts. And at this point, I'm not sure if I'm the jerk and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been dating my girlfriend for almost 3 years, and we have recently been going through a difficult phase. There are many reasons for our recent problems. At first, everything happened very quickly. We started dating very quickly and moved in together, and I feel guilty because I am her first boyfriend and she's my third girlfriend. I should have been wiser, but I got carried away by the euphoria of our first dates. For a few months now, we've been having some problems because of our differences. It's as if the little things that happened in the past happen so often that they become bigger and at some point turn into a problem, such as the fact that we are very different emotionally speaking. I am very calm and I try to seek out peaceful relationships and dialogues with her and pretty much everyone close to me, whereas she's practically the opposite. She gets angry easily, she swears, she hits things, and gets triggered by the smallest things, like dropping something on the floor. I feel like she's going to explode at someone at any moment, and when we have a problem, she retreats into silence and gives me the cold shoulder, followed by, oh, nothing's wrong, while I'm seriously just seeking dialogue. We've talked about this a lot, but nothing ever changes. Well, yesterday, we argued because she's one of those people who has an opinion about everything and everyone, who always knows what everyone everyone should do, always has criticism for everyone around her, and always speaks her mind. She has a very strong personality and seems really proud of it, and apparently it runs in the family. We ended up arguing because she didn't want to spend Christmas with me and my family, and she justified it by saying that she doesn't want to be around my siblings because she doesn't like them. Now, the reason behind this is that she thinks my 6-year-old sister is spoiled, and that's why she doesn't like her. She also thinks my 11-year-old brother is messy, and my 17-year-old brother is useless. She also disagrees with how my mom deals with them and says that I should do something about it. So seriously, that's what really bothers me. Her having an opinion about everything and everyone, knowing what everyone should do and making a point of speaking up, because that's just how she is in terms of like personality. I told her yesterday that it bothers me and that she's so bossy about it. And she said it bothers her that I'm so easygoing simply because I mind my own business and I don't always act like a know-it-all. Well, yesterday after the argument, I said it was better to break up because I can't take it anymore. I believe there should be differences, but not ones that make you roll your eyes. But she said that everyone is like her and has an opinion about everything, but I don't believe that's true. People I've known in the past weren't like that at all. Even though I told her I want to break up, I still feel guilty, and I feel like I'm demanding too much from her and I'm creating trouble. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm really confused. I don't think you're the jerk at all. And no, not all girls are like that. That's so stupid. Like, there's so many women out there that are not like this in the slightest. They're not making some weird judgment call about someone else's life, literally based on nothing. Like, come on. So when she's trying to convince you, oh yeah, all girls are like this, she's literally trying to manipulate you, and I would ignore that entirely. And also, it is not unusual to want to break up with someone over something like this, because if I was in your shoes, I would definitely want to break up with her as well. Like, this behavior is not only super annoying, but it's also really toxic. And also, holy crap, you moved in with her? Like, dude, that is way too soon. So no, you're not the jerk. This all really makes sense in my opinion. And I think your now ex-girlfriend has a lot of growing up to do because the way she's acting is very immature. My entitled sister demands that I give her my car that she gave to me 2 years ago so that she can sell it to buy a new car herself. And despite the fact that we signed it over into my name and we spent thousands of dollars fixing it up because it was undrivable, my sister still feels entitled to it in a way that I'm honestly so confused by. Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So about 2 years and a couple of months ago, I was looking for a cheap car to buy because my husband and I had been driving an old car that was really starting to give out. My sister at the time owned a Dodge Dart and a Dodge Charger. She and her significant other also had a Taurus that was from the year 2000 that had literally just been sitting there parked in her driveway for 2 years, and it was completely undrivable. So she and her significant other offered to give my family the broke down car. I asked them what they wanted for it, and the response that I got was them saying, oh, nothing at all. We are family, and if you are getting it running, you can have it. And that is quite literally a quote from them. Now, I was extremely grateful, and so my husband and I borrowed a trailer and picked up the car and put the car in our names. We worked on the car for about a month in the yard, buying car parts for it, and finally, we got it running. A little over 2 years later, we spent about $1,000 in major parts and repairs just to keep her running for our family as we used it. She was my everyday and only car. We put hours of labor and love into this 20-year-old car just to keep it going for us. Now, not one time had I ever heard my sister or her significant other ask for anything of the car in those 2 years. Well, a month ago, my husband and I decided to finance a Dodge Journey 2018 since we found out that we were pregnant a few months ago and we needed more room for another baby. My husband had worked so hard for a promotion, and we felt we could finally afford a car note and use the Taurus as a backup in case it didn't work out. I have had it now for about 30 days, and I just made my first regular payment on it. Now, when it comes to my sister, during that 2 years, she has had 2 more kids, and now will have a 3rd kid all under 4 years old. She had quit her job months ago, just as I had, to stay home and take care of her babies. Her significant other only makes $4 less than mine, and things really took a turn for them. And somehow she is 4 payments behind on her Chevy Tahoe that she is financing. She sold her Dodge Dart for a down payment on this vehicle about a year ago, and she was very worried about how she was going to make her baby's doctor's appointments and how her significant other was going to get to work. These conversations went on for about a month, and not once did she ever ask about the Taurus. I talked it over with my husband, and I asked him if we could let her borrow the car if hers gets repossessed until she can get another one. Well, we both agreed, and I called her and I told her that she can come use the Taurus for however long it took for her to get another car. I also let her know that it was having a hard time making it out of town, while also telling her what to watch for when driving, because it was becoming our backup car for a reason. Well, just this afternoon, I asked her if she still thought she needed the Taurus, and she said yes and that she was coming to get it soon. Then they commented how they were going to sell the Taurus for a down payment for another car, and I was completely shocked to hear that. But I told her she is not going to sell my car, but she can use it for however long she needed. She then got very upset and told me, okay, so after we gave you the car, you expect us to buy it from you? And I just said to her, no, that is my car, and I offered to buy the car when I took it over 2 years ago, and the both of you said no. I said that it was not run for over 2 years, and we had put so much money and labor into the car just to keep it going those 2 years that we had it. She then called me a hypocrite and that I was selfish because she had helped me get up in life and that I didn't need it now because I have another car, while also claiming that she gave us a head start in life. And when she said that, I was just shocked. She feels as though I owe it to her to give her this car that I have owned for over 2 years and put so much money and labor into it. I then cried to my husband about it, and he had showed me all the money that he had lent her and her significant other on Cash App and how she had still not paid it back, which was about $400 in the last few months ever since their finances started to go downhill. I told him not to send it to her and that it wasn't worth asking for it even after she called me a hypocrite and acted like she was my savior. All those days she called me crying about how bad her significant other was spending their money and they were just completely broke. All those times I dropped off Medicaid applications as well as several other similar applications for her and she just never even touched them. I lent her my money anytime she asked and I even paid for and arranged both of her baby showers. I tried all I could to help her out these last few months, but when I draw the line with the car, it was almost as if it was all for nothing. She acted like I was selfish and ungrateful to her. I'm just so sad right now, and I'm trying to make sure my own pregnancy hormones aren't getting in the way of my decision. My husband says that she dug her own hole, so we just need to let her lie in it. But he was angry about the hurtful words that she had said to me. Well, I messaged her that I would be glad to allow her to use the car still, even after what she said, but she still felt entitled to it and hung up on me because I did not want her to sell my car. Now, after all that's said and done, am I in the right? And am I wrong to feel justified in my actions? I feel like I'm being guilt-tripped, and I just need validation or some kind of opinion because right now I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk and you didn't do anything wrong. Your sister is literally trying to steal your car and sell it off so they can get a new one. Like, that is all that's going on right now, and that is insane in my opinion. So what? Even though the car's in your name and your husband's name, they still feel entitled to have it and be like, oh yeah, we deserve it. We're gonna take that car and sell it to get a new car. It's like, no, you're not. 2 years ago, you signed it over to me. This is my car now. You don't own it. Just because they were too lazy to fix it up and do something with it doesn't mean you should be punished because you actually did do something with it. Like, you made it work. You put the time and effort into it, and you literally spent so much money just to get this car drivable. So for your sister to step in and be like, we deserve that car, we're gonna use that and sell it for something else, like, that is just completely crazy in my opinion, and it's honestly so unbelievably entitled. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because the way your sister is acting, in my opinion, is absolutely uncalled for. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for constantly starting fights with my parents every time they violate my privacy boundaries? Because right now, it's the worst it's ever been in my life, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 22-year-old male, and this is a problem that I've been dealing with since my early teenage years. I grew up in a household that never really seemed to have a regard or respect for privacy. A lot of the times, I would rationalize it for being our culture or how my parents were raised, but at other times, it was just downright frustrating and even confusing how my parents refused to allow for certain privacies in their home. One of the biggest struggles and disagreements that has been long-lasting to this current date is the boundary of my room. Now, I'm not a very messy person. Granted, when I was younger, I was even cleaner, and this was due to my mom's OCD-like tendencies. I was raised with absolute spotless floors that were vacuumed and mopped daily, if not twice daily. Now, because of this, I was always witnessing my mom with her own cleaning patterns and organization patterns. I learned from her, and before I knew it, I too was also very clean and very organized as an individual. Well, fast forward a few years later, and I've gotten older, and I'm now a young adult, preparing and saving to move out and start the next chapter of my life. However, the relationship with my parents has only worsened. The boundary of my room being off limits to my mother has been an ongoing argument argument ever since the day I decided to go against her style of decorating and organizing. Whether it was to hang up LED strips, tapestries, or posters along my walls, it was always an issue. Whether it was to buy new chairs or beanbags for my room, it was always an issue. Even recently, about a year ago, I bought 2 new rugs for my floor, and that was also an issue for some ridiculous and outlandish reason. It's done nothing but cause some of the most heated verbal conflicts between me and my parents, driving a wedge in the relationship. 8 months after I had bought the rugs and displayed them, I returned from a 5,000-mile road trip across the country just to find out that my rugs had been removed and my room was almost completely rearranged. Everything was changed and reorganized, from where I kept my very important migraine medication all the way to where I keep my collection of shoes. When I come home, I find the boxes that I keep them in thrown away in the recycling. Meanwhile, my medication is nowhere to be spotted, and my entire room doesn't look anything like it did when I left. To make matters even worse, I had recorded what my room looked like right before I had left for my trip, so I had literal videographic proof of the issue, so it only made me angrier and angrier. On a separate occasion days after, I started to develop an insane migraine, and I needed my medication fast. Usually, when I get migraines, it involves these super irritating stars in my eyes that basically block my vision completely. When I rushed searching around my room, I was left sitting in absolute intense pain for 2 hours, unable to find the medication that I usually keep in a very specific, easy to locate location. I even called my mother and father multiple times just to be left on voicemail every single time. I was furious. As soon as my mom came home, she pretended and played stupid, acting like she had no clue where my medication had been moved because she hadn't been in my room for the past 2 months. But then I pulled up the video that I had taken right before my trip, and I show her the footage of exactly where my medication bottle was sitting in my room. She then walks around the house for 2 minutes, pretending to be confused and acting as if she doesn't know where they are. Then, seconds after looking around in my bathroom, she comes walking out shaking my medication bottle and jokingly saying, "Oh, you're always so faded. You never know where you leave your stuff at. I never even moved this. It's your medicine, and it's supposed to go in your medicine cabinet where we all keep our medicine." But that's the thing, I've never done that, ever. For as long as I've had migraines, I've never once walked to the bathroom and grabbed it in the cabinet. And that's when I just officially lost it. I slammed the door shut in her face, and when my dad came home, I immediately came storming out and I yelled at him. Now, I feel bad every time this happens, especially afterwards, but at the same time, he continuously allows for this pattern of conflict to keep repeating. Multiple times, I've asked that either a lock that only I have the key to is placed on the door, or that my mom is to be kept from stepping foot in my room anymore to organize or move my stuff around. Every time this happens and is brought up, my dad only tries to calm me down or yells at me to either deal with the situation or move out. And this specifically is becoming his response every single time now, even though he fully knows that I've been saving up money to move out for a while now. Then this further results in super tense verbal altercations where a ton of insults and mean or rude comments are traded back and forth, mainly on my behalf due to the frustration, and even at times gaslighting from my mother. I love my family and I love my mom and dad, and I will always be grateful for the fact that they put a roof over my head for all of 22 years. And they did take care of me, raise me, and put food on my plates. But right now, I feel so frustrated and disrespected as an individual. I should have a choice on how my room is decorated. I should have a choice for whether I want to keep my shoe collection in their boxes or not. And I should be allowed to have the proper privacy and safe space in the home that I live in. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Man, this story is meant for me because I feel the exact same way the original poster does. Seriously, is it that big of a deal to be like, okay, this is my room and I want some privacy? Like, that really should be the bare minimum of like what you expect in your life, especially when you're living with other people, regardless of if they're your parents or not. Like, that is so uncalled for her to act like that and for her to basically go in and move everything around. Like, that would drive me crazy if that was me, because personally, I'm a very private individual and I don't like people being all up in my business. And in this case, it is quite literally someone else going through all of your stuff. I would lose my mind if someone moved all my stuff around like that. Like, that is so violating. So no, you're not the jerk for getting upset, because they clearly are just not taking you seriously. And if anything, if you really wanted to send a message, you could easily change out those locks on the door and put in a doorknob that only you have the key to. Like, sure, that would probably cause like an uproar of some kind, and you can obviously keep the other door ready if they really want to change it back out, but that really would send a clear message that you want privacy while you're living there. But regardless, in the meantime, I really hope you're saving as much money as you can, because the way your parents are acting is super obnoxious, and I don't blame you in the slightest for being frustrated. Am I I the jerk for not being supportive of my girlfriend's decision after she signed up to run a half marathon, even though she's never run in this capacity in her life? Here's what happened. So I have a girlfriend that just recently decided to sign up for a half marathon come December. The reason why she signed up is because she doesn't want to go to an event that's also happening that day, so now she has a built-in excuse, and that's honestly really wild to me. She asked me beforehand, and I told her that I thought it was a bad idea. She doesn't like running, nor does she even run, and she could find another excuse that isn't running a half marathon. Well, she signed up anyways. She then told me that she will follow a 12-week plan for running the half marathon that was given to her with her inscription. Now, here's the thing. I'm a runner in an elite running club, and I've run over a dozen half marathons and countless 5Ks and 10Ks in my life. This summer, I ran a 10K and a half marathon, and I finished 5th overall in the 10K and 12th in my category for the half marathon. I'm by no means a good runner, good as in I can make a living doing it, but I do know what I'm talking about. Now, she has often talked about wanting to get in shape, which I've always encouraged but never pushed for it. I mean, it really is just not my place. About a month ago, she started going to workout classes, and she's enjoying them quite a bit, and I have gone with her a couple of times. So I assume that going to these workout classes was the final motivation she needed to sign up for the half marathon. Anyways, I advised her to start walking and jogging now before she starts the 12-week program. I told her that she needs to build a cardio base before she takes on a half marathon program that includes jogging, repetitions, intervals, long distance, and some hills. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but she doesn't want to because she's not willing to stop going to these workout classes, and she gets tired doing 2 workouts a day. I told her that a half marathon is a lot of mileage and that she needed to get extra prepared so she doesn't get injured in the race. She said she's not interested in achieving a good time and that she just wants to finish the race, even if it's walking. She also said that she has a cardio base from playing basketball growing up, even though she stopped playing basketball 8 years ago. I told her that she made this commitment and that she should take it more seriously. 12 weeks for a half marathon is a pretty standard program when you've been running and you want to hit your peak in the race, not when you're about to start from scratch. Well, that was the last straw, and she got really upset with me, saying that I was trying to put her down, I was not being supportive of her, and that it's not easy for her when her boyfriend is in great shape and she isn't. Now, at that point, I apologized for making her feel that way and that I would just drop it. I do feel that I need to find a better way to approach it, but at this point, I really need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. You're literally just trying to look out for your girlfriend, who in my opinion is quite literally in over her head. Like, why would she say, oh yeah, I'm gonna sign up for a half marathon to get out of this obligation? Why not pick literally anything else? Like, there is a myriad of reasons why she could get out of this obligation, so the fact that she thought, oh yeah, a marathon would be a good excuse, like, that's crazy to me and that just doesn't make any sense. If anything, it sounds like the plot out of The Office or something like that. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for trying to like tell her the truth about what's going on here, because I really think that she's going to have a rude awakening. Am I the jerk for yelling at my dirty housemate in front of his friends after he once again forgot to flush the toilet? Here's what happened. Okay, so I live in a house with another guy who is incredibly dirty. The biggest issue is that he often uses a toilet and then doesn't flush. And every time I find it, he denies it's him, but it's obviously either me or him, and I know it's not me. Now, this situation has been taking a toll on my mental health as I suffer from anxiety and depression, and having to deal with someone else's garbage just isn't helping. I've even gone out of my way to buy all the necessary cleaning supplies, and I left them by the toilet for him to use, but he still doesn't flush properly. He only flushes once and just hopes for the best, I guess. Well, today it happened again. I was already stressed because I had a fight with a friend, and I came home really mad. My boyfriend was with me, and he knows how much this situation affects me. Unfortunately, I can't move out for another 3 months because of the contract, but after that, I'm moving in with my boyfriend. When I got home, I decided to shower, and of course, I found that my housemate didn't flush again. His friends were over, but I know it was him who made the mess because they only arrived after me and my boyfriend, and I even asked them at the reception when they came in. Well, I was furious, and I stormed straight to his room and I screamed at him. I called him a disgusting fat pig and some other names that I'm not proud of. He tried denying it again, but I called him out on his BS. His friends gave him the side eye, and he eventually went to clean up after himself. Now, my boyfriend supports what I did, and my housemate apologized and claimed that he has IBS, but that is literally not even the issue for me. The real problem is him not flushing properly. I told him to stop using that as an excuse and to just act like an adult. Well, here's the thing. My sister thinks that I'm the jerk because I could have talked to him privately instead of embarrassing him in front of his friends. She reminded me that he's mentioned having trouble making friends before, and what I did is definitely not helping. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk because that is something that should be cleaned up and taken care of right away. You literally should only have to tell him that once, and that should be fixed like immediately, because that is incredibly gross. Like seriously, dude, just flush the toilet and clean up after yourself. So in my opinion, calling him out in front of his friends might have been the only thing to get through to him. Like if I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing. Like for me personally, I wouldn't care if he's embarrassed. He needs to figure this out and get it taken care of. And if you talking to him in private isn't going to do the job, then maybe talking in front of his friends will get him to change his habits, because what he's doing is absolutely unacceptable, and you should not have to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for locking my room so my roommate doesn't get in when I'm not home? Because right now, my roommate's saying that I'm questioning his character, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old male, and I'm living with a friend whom I have known for years. This friend is 37 years old, and I moved into his apartment last August, and I have been renting one of the rooms there since. However, in February, he sent a message to my sister that my jacket smelled like the herb, if you know what I mean. He had no prior contact with my sister, but he was angry with me for not being home that weekend, which is why he sent it. Now, I have since quit smoking, but I felt like he crossed some boundaries, and I've been mostly to myself ever since. The reason I bring up the fact that he told my sister that I smoked is because he knows that my family do not take lightly to this. He knew it would make me look like some sort of junkie, which my sister thought for some time, and I was just illustrating that his intentions aren't always good, even though he pretends that they are. However, when I'm not home, he is often in my room and goes through my trash and picks up bottles. I've let him know that I find it weird and I don't want him in my room when I am not home. I also don't have a key, so I am unable to lock the door when I leave for class or for work. When I order takeout with my own money, which is rare but it does happen occasionally, he finds it in my trash and lets me know that he never orders takeout because it's a waste of money. He also tells me to clean my room, even though it's pretty clean for the record, but he has a different standard to what clean is than I do. He smells my clothing that I put in the wash and tries to confront me sometimes thinking that I smoke. Also, he tells me to close my window when I go to work or to class, even though we don't live in the first floor. So basically, he's in my room a lot when I'm not home. He also goes into my room when I'm sleeping because I'm sleeping next to my laptop as I need to watch something to go to bed. He says it's to remove the laptop, but I've told him that I don't want him to do that, but instead he just keeps doing it. Additionally, he insists on using the bathroom when I am showering and using the kitchen when I'm cooking, and I find this to be an invasion of my privacy, and I have confronted him, insinuating that his behavior is controlling. I have asked for a key for my room, which he didn't take lightly, and I want to keep pushing for a key, but he makes it seem like I'm questioning his character. I want a key, but I feel like a jerk for pushing for it. What should I do? Okay, first of all, your roommate is a massive creep. This guy's going into your bedroom while you're sleeping, and he's literally going through your trash while you're like not aware of it. Like that's weird, and I don't care who you are, you shouldn't do that to somebody. And you know what? Yes, you are questioning his character. This guy is going through your stuff. The only reason he doesn't want to give you a key is because he literally just wants to keep going through your stuff while you're not there. And God knows how many times he's done that. So no, you're not the jerk for wanting to lock your room, but in my opinion, the bigger problem is the roommate itself, because this guy sounds like a massive weirdo. And in my opinion, you can find a much better roommate than what this guy is trying to offer. An entitled jerk demands that I move my car, as he claims that the public parking spot that I parked in was actually specifically reserved for him and his stupid Porsche. But after I ignored this man and decided to go about my day, he decided to try and block my car in its spot by putting down orange traffic cones to block my exit, claiming that he would call the police and have me arrested if I moved them. So I decided to get revenge by running them over and destroying them as I left. Here's what happened. Okay, so there's a cafe in my city that is a favorite spot for car enthusiasts. There's a sort of small car museum attached, and it's midway along a slow but scenic winding road. It's a great destination for car enthusiasts, as well as cyclists and residents of the upscale neighborhood that it's in. There are about 30 parking spots, and it's usually pretty busy. On the way back from a long drive, I pulled into the U-shaped drive alley, and luckily there was an empty spot right in front of the cafe doors. So I pulled in, and as I was getting out of the car, a newer turbo Cabria pulled up right behind me and put on its flashers. And for car enthusiasts, it was a black 997 automatic with a very large Porsche decal across the top of the windscreen, plus red Porsche decals on the door handles. The driver blipped the horn twice and motioned at me with his hands. I looked around thinking maybe I missed a handicap sign or pavement marking, but I didn't see anything around me. So I walked around the back of my car to check the pavement for the blue square, but nope, it was definitely a regular spot. As I was looking under the car, car, the door of the Porsche opened up, and a heavyset man with a thumb-shaped head and a circled beard and mustache extricated himself and said, "Sorry, bud, you're in my spot. You gotta move." I said to him, "Excuse me?" And I looked around again, maybe thinking that this was reserved for staff, or maybe that this was the owner, but still, nothing was obviously marked about this parking spot. I said to him, "I don't understand." He said to me, "We're always here at noon on Saturday. We park up front in a row, see?" He then points to two other cars similar to his on either side of me. I said to him, "Sorry, is there an event going on here?" He then says to me, "No, we're just here every week at this point for our meetup. We park up front and this is my spot. You gotta move it along, buddy." Now, I'm still not ready to let the mask slip, but I'm starting to suspect that this is utter entitled BS. But I've been wrong before, so I just shrug and say, "Alright, I'm gonna go check with the staff, and if it's your spot, I'll definitely move." He then says to me, "Whoa, buddy, don't make a mistake like that. I'm not the one you want to get on the wrong side of." I now realize the extent of the nonsense he is playing at, and I'm in no way a tough guy, but I'm 25 years younger, a head taller, and this guy is pear or even gourd-shaped and sweating from the effort of hauling himself out of his car, so I am not in the least intimidated. Plus, the cafe has floor-to-ceiling glass, so I can order my lunch and eat it, all with my car and its unscratched paintwork in full view. Plus, there are picnic tables with dozens of people sitting at them. I give him one last chance. I say to him, "How about I come get you when I'm ready to leave so you can have my spot? Because I won't be too long." He then looks at me and says, "Oh, buddy, you're gonna regret this, I promise you." He then heaves himself back into his car and drives out to park along the road. And seriously, he was maybe 40 feet away. As I'm ordering my coffee, I see him storming back towards my car with his arms full of two traffic cones. He then slams down both cones behind my car, blocking me in the parking spot. With my car now coned off, he struts into the cafe and walks past me. He then wags his finger at me and says that if I touch his property, he's gonna go straight to the cops. Now, I honestly couldn't think of anything clever to say, so I just nodded and went back to my coffee and grilled cheese sandwich. He settled into a booth in the back with two other bearded, sweaty thumbs who alternated between staring at me and talking loudly but indistinctly in that raspy, gravelly way that sounds like they're about to clear their throat, but they never do. I spent the rest of my lunch racking my brain trying to think of what to do, but I was so thrown off by this weirdness that I couldn't come up with anything. Do I call the cops about some cones? Do I tell the staff? Do I even confront him? There was an open dumpster at the edge of the parking lot, but I figured he could be at my car quicker than I could get there and back. In the end, I just finished up, set my phone to video just in case I needed something to show to the cops, and I waited until there were no cars coming in or even going out so my exit was clear. So I stood up, I briskly walked out, got in my car, and I backed straight over those stupid cones and drove off, praying that neither of them got stuck in my wheel well. I only looked back once, but I did get the satisfaction of seeing two completely flattened and torn traffic cones and a man crashing his way through the cafe on the way to the parking lot with his cell phone waving in the air, presumably recording my crime for the benefit of the police. Now, that was over 4 hours ago, and I'm still a free man. No damage to my car, the grilled cheese sandwich was delicious, so in the end, I guess I won. And I'm sure that this entitled jerk's Porsche is probably already restocked with fresh cones from his garage, ready to reserve his next parking spot that he feels entitled to. Wow, I will never understand anybody who acts this way. Like, seriously, he tried to sit there and be like, "Oh, this is my spot, and trust me, if you don't listen to me, you're gonna regret it so much." Like, oh, what are you gonna do, pull out the traffic cones and block my car in? Like, seriously, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, if someone did that to me, I think I would have done the exact same thing. Like, no one's gonna keep me in my parking spot all because he's like, "No, that's my spot, I claimed it." Because that parking spot is literally not his. He can't claim it just because he's there every single week, and I can guarantee you he doesn't own that spot. So good for you for standing up for yourself and running over those stupid traffic cones, because that guy's behavior was completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I discovered that my neighbor is a con artist and has a criminal record that is incredibly long, and now it seems that he's targeting me by trying to drag me into one of his scams. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, let me preface this by saying the following. I've already learned not to trust someone just because they're a senior citizen anymore, and to immediately look up someone as soon as I find out their full name, unlike what I've done in the past and in this situation. I know it was stupid of me, but please hear me out. For starters, I'm a 26-year-old female and I live alone in a side-by-side condo duplex, and next door is a group home for senior citizens. Currently, it houses two people, a man who's 65 years old and a woman who I think is in her 70s. But when it comes to this story, the man is who I want to talk about. I've been here for about 6 months, and the woman has been here for about 4. The man, I'll call him Steve, that's obviously not his real name, just moved in about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and when I first saw Steve show up, I greeted him and engaged him in friendly small talk conversation when I first saw him sitting on the porch. I do this with neighbors just as a way to develop a courteous, neighborly relationship. These conversations just consisted of, hey, how are you doing and how's the weather? You know, stuff like that. It's honestly super simple. Well, that night, there was a problem in Steve and the woman's condo with the fire alarm, and the fire department had to be called. With my unit being attached, I had to wait outside on my porch until the fire department called for an all clear for us to go back in. We engaged in some small talk then, but honestly, it was nothing much. I think the most that came out of it was that I lent a chair for the woman to sit on since they had no porch furniture, and then I took it back at the end of the night. Nothing else really happened from there. The following morning, on my way in from my daily run, Steve was sitting on his porch and we waved to one another, and he told me he needed to show me what the fire department showed him to reset the alarms. Now, for reference, it was a false alarm, and they had to reset the system via the breaker box. Now, I found this reasonable enough, and he came down and showed me in the basement which fuse to switch, and I now know that this was a mistake. He kept talking and had brought a clipboard with a business card and a notepad on it, claiming to be a paralegal, and explaining that if any senior citizen I knew needed his service, that he was available, and that he could open up a trust fund for them as he was telling me. Now, I found this to be nothing I was interested in, so I just said, yeah, okay, and then he finally left. Well, a few minutes later, he knocked on my door again, asking if I could take him to go get his medication. And having taken 2 previous neighbors who were senior citizens to go get their medications at my last apartment that I lived in, I thought nothing of the situation. I felt compassion for him and I agreed. He then told me that it was in a city that's about 20 to 30 minutes away from where we're at right now. Well, I agreed anyways, feeling bad for his lack of transportation and his heart condition. Now, on the day of, I drove him there without any kind of issue. We ended up talking about some things that we had in common, and I truly find it interesting, enlightening, and fun to talk to mature folks because they have wisdom and knowledge that only comes with experience. We talked about things that were on a deeper level than small talk, but it wasn't anything super intimate. No super personal stuff, just anecdotes about our lives and our mutual interest in what we like to learn about. Stuff like science or philosophy, etc. There was nothing in it you could walk away from the conversation with saying something like, yeah, I really know this person's whole soul and personality. I helped him run a few more errands that day, including the bank and library close to our homes. And when we returned to his house, he asked me inside to meet his roommate's new puppy. And honestly, it was all good. Fast forward and a few days go by, and Steve asked me to take him to the library. And I'm thinking he means the very same library that we visited close to our houses a few days ago. So I just agreed. He wants to look something up on the computer, and once we're ready to go, he drops it on me last minute that he actually wants to go to the library that's again 30 minutes away. And before we leave, he's talking about the trust fund thing again and gives me documents and a DVD about how a birth certificate is really a government bond that will allow you to open up $1 million trust fund to pay for your expenses. Now, I'm not stupid. I know this is a scam. And at this point, while I'm waiting in the car, I look up his name, and this man has a criminal record longer than a grocery receipt, and most of it is identity theft or related to it. So I decide to say screw it. I'm not signing or agreeing to anything, and he's not a violent criminal, so I'm fine, and I take him where he wants to go. While we're there, he insists that I need to read whatever it is he's looking for on the computer, and this isn't just any library. It's a university law library. I have no idea what I'm even looking at. I only agreed to take him, and now he's insisting that I need to study this stuff with him about laws, almost as if he's looking for his new partner in crime. I don't know. We leave after 20 minutes, and he finally found what he wanted, and he ended up emailing it to himself. On the way back, he says to me, well, if we keep coming back here, you won't need a GPS to know the way home, and kept going on and on about opening that trust fund up for me. And you know what? I just laughed awkwardly. I didn't know what to say at that point, and I just thought that if I could get through this day, I wouldn't have to talk to him again, and he would probably be normal about it. But I mean, I can't hope for that, can I? After all, we weren't intimate and we aren't friends. We were just neighbors, and he needed to go somewhere, so I drove him for some errands. You would think he would understand that. We went back and forth for a few minutes about how he was going to print his paper that he found at the library, and I told him to email it to me and I would print it. I mean, he pressured me and insisted that he didn't know how and that he needed to come back and print it himself. And yes, I know, something bad could have happened, and this is where I extremely messed up. I mean, go ahead and just tell me. But that's exactly what he did, and when I followed him out, I locked the house. And after that, I plan to never talk to him again, at least not on the same level, because this guy was doing way too much. The following day, I gathered all his phony documents and DVD in a grocery bag, and I left them on the door of their apartment. I just felt all too uncomfortable, and ignoring a gut feeling has never got me anywhere good. Well, it turns out I was correct. He knocked on my door asking if he could come in and show me something on my computer, but I said, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm really busy right now, maybe later," hoping the slow icing out would work. Later, I found a note on my door that was 5 pages long and handwritten, all about how offended he was that I didn't let him in my home. It included lovely things like, "Oh, when I knocked on your door, I noticed you were all moody. I don't have time for little moody matters, and it had me feeling a different kind of way." He also said, "When I encounter a situation such as the one you put me in, I can sometimes stop my heart condition from fighting somebody." He also said some creepy things like calling me a good girl and that I just need to remove some baggage in my life. He then asked me for my full name and phone number, while also spouting off some weird stuff about the Bible as well as me finding a mate. Well, needless to say, I took this to the police and they recorded it just in case something else happens. I've been avoiding him since then, but I don't want to feel like a prisoner in my own home. I mean, I was here first, and I don't have the funds to move, and I don't owe him access to my house, even if he's been in it before. I don't owe him to even talk to him or take him anywhere. Well, today he was sitting on his porch, and when I came home from running errands, I clearly wasn't making eye contact after his creepy note. He asked how I was doing, and I said, "Good, how are you?" And I said it rather shortly. He then said good and asked if I had plans for Labor Day weekend, and I told him yes. Then he said, "Have a good day," and he went immediately inside after I did, and it felt like he was waiting for me to get home. The whole conversation was really tense, and he had a tone of voice that signaled that he felt like I owed him something. So I'm honestly never going out of my way to help anyone like this ever again, because this situation was incredibly creepy. Wow, this is a lesson you do not need to learn the hard way, people. Seriously, I don't care how neighborly somebody is, or how sweet and nice they are regardless of their age. If you don't know them, don't give them a ride. Like seriously, if you don't know anything about them and you know very little about them, just stay away from them until you figure out what they're about. Like this original poster absolutely put their life in danger. Like I'm completely convinced that they got lucky and that this guy very easily could have hurt her in a lot of different ways. And it sucks because it sounds like they're a good person, but seriously, you need to put lines in the sand of like, okay, this is what I'm not gonna do. And interacting with strangers like this where you let them into your home and you give them rides all over the city and all this other stuff, like that's out of the question. Because then you go from being a good person to being a foolish person. You're no longer doing a good deed by helping out someone like this, and instead you're intentionally putting yourself in a bad position, all because you're too afraid to say no. Like my God, did they get lucky? This is seriously a scary situation. So in my opinion, I think you either need to make it very clear that you do not want to talk to this guy, or just straight up ignore him altogether. Like this might be a good time to just be rude and completely ignore him. Not to mention investing in some kind of like doorbell camera, because this guy is a known criminal, and this is definitely not someone that you should ever take lightly. Am I the jerk for rescuing a cat from a neglectful owner and refusing to give her updates of any kind, as she has slowly become very weird and very obsessive? And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Last year, I met a girl on Bumble BFF, and for the sake of the story, let's call her Lisa. We didn't really click, and I had my own stuff going on, so things just didn't go anywhere. The only thing that we had in common was that we were from the same culture and we both like cats. A few weeks later, she told me she found a tiny kitten on the street and decided to take him in. Now, I would get updates from her now and then, and everything seemed fine until about 6 months later when she started posting everywhere that he needed to go as soon as possible. Her post was heartbreaking. She listed all these reasons why she couldn't keep him. He was biting and was aggressive. He was messing up the litter box and destroying her stuff. She said the smell was unbearable, and with her chronic pain, she just couldn't handle him anymore. My heart went out to the little guy, so I decided to step in. I've rescued a lot of cats before, so I knew that I could help. I reached out to my best friend who works for a vet, and we made a plan to get the kitten out of there and into a foster home within a week. So we picked him up, and I let Lisa know that he was safe and doing well. But when the vet checked him out, they found he was terrified of people and had some bruises, suggesting that he might have been mistreated. I didn't want to confront Lisa about it since the cat was out of that situation, so I just gave her vague updates. And that's when things got really weird. Lisa started asking for my friend's contact information to get updates directly. I told her that wasn't possible, but she wouldn't drop it. She sent me a bunch of messages saying it was weird that I wouldn't let her talk to the person who had her cat now. now. Well, after that, I blocked her, but she kept coming back, even using a burner number to try and get the vet's information because supposedly she had a new kitten. Now, I had had enough, so I finally just told her off. I pointed out that if the first cat was really her baby, she wouldn't have been so desperate just to get rid of him. I also mentioned that the vet found signs of mistreatment, which explain his behavior. I told her she shouldn't have any more pets until she can get her life together. Well, she got defensive, denying everything and blaming her family if anything happened when she wasn't around. So I just blocked her again and I tried to move on. But then things got even messier. My fiance received a flirty message from someone which he blocked, and then I got a direct message from Lisa's friend. It was a nasty message, accusing me of being a weird jerk for claiming that Lisa, with her back issues, was mistreating the cat, and the whole thing was just meant to insult and provoke me. So here I am, wondering if I'm the bad guy in this situation. I was just trying to help the cat, and now it's turned into this crazy drama with Lisa and her friend. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk for obvious reasons, but also I think the only reason Lisa is like reaching out to you and the vet is because she doesn't want to get in trouble for mistreating that cat. Because in my opinion, that is most likely what was going on here, and in my opinion, this kind of reads like she was trying to save face instead of like looking out for the cat. So no, you're not the jerk, and if anything, I think you definitely did the right thing, because Lisa is clearly not a good pet owner, and she had no business having this cat or her current cat in the slightest. Would I be the jerk if I decided not to let my housemate's boyfriend live with us? Because right now, this is a massive decision in my life, and at this point, I'm seriously unsure of what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 29-year-old male, and I'm sharing a house with two flatmates. Let's call them Lucy and Annie. Lucy has been here from the start, and Annie and I are quite new here. Now, Lucy is in a long-distance relationship with her boyfriend of 2 years, and he's from India but currently lives in another country, which is closer to where we are. His visa is expiring, so they're going to get married in November, which Lucy didn't tell us about. Well, here's where it gets tricky. They want to move in together, so Lucy asked us if it would be fine if he moved into her room in 6 weeks. Now, Annie doesn't really have an opinion on it, and she's too stressed out right now to think about it, but I am absolutely against it. I really don't like being around lovey-dovey couples. It makes me extremely uncomfortable, and I'd like to be in peace while I'm at home. In fact, all of my friends recommended me to not do it, since living with couples is apparently a crappy situation to be in. So tomorrow, we'll have a meeting to discuss how to go on. But unfortunately, it gets trickier. Lucy said that if we didn't accept her boyfriend moving in, she would probably move out and find something else for them. But she owns 90% of the stuff in this house, so Annie and I would have to redecorate, and I would be fine with it, but Annie seems kind of scared of that, so she might move out as well if Lucy moves out, and then I would need to find 2 new flatmates. Now, you might be asking, why would he move into her room at all? Well, it's because our city is extremely crowded, and finding a flat is near impossible, especially since Lucy doesn't make that much money, and her boyfriend won't be able to get a work permit, and if he can't move to our country, they'll probably send him back to India. So as of right now, these are the scenarios. The first scenario is I say no and Lucy finds another apartment. She will then either have to move out of this one, which is really beautiful, or let her boyfriend be deported to India, and Annie might move out too. The second scenario is I say no and Lucy doesn't find another apartment. She stays here, she'll be mad at me, and her boyfriend gets deported to India. The third scenario is I say yes. Nobody is mad and the rent gets cheaper for me, but I would have to live with a couple, which would be honestly a nightmare for me, and I would be exposed to their fighting and all their other issues going on. Maybe I'm not the jerk because I would just be standing my ground, and honestly, it's not my fault that they planned his immigration so badly. But on the other hand, I might be the jerk because standing my ground will put Lucy in quite the situation. What should I do? Honestly, this is one of those things where you really need to weigh your options, because if you say no, it does sound like the boyfriend is going to be deported back to India, and also your roommates are going to go. So then you're going to be tasked with not only refurnishing the apartment, but also getting 2 new flatmates. So sure, for the sake of your convenience, you could say, no, I don't want that to happen, but it makes me wonder how this boyfriend really is. Like, does this guy just suck completely and you just know for a fact he's a loser and they're just going to argue all the time? Or is he going to be a decent person and he's not going to be a problem in the house? Because if it's the second one, then honestly, I wouldn't have a problem with being like, okay, yeah, move in with us. But I do think that whatever you choose to do, you really need to think this through very carefully. Because while you are entitled to your opinion and you are looking out for your best interest. By saying no, you will dramatically change 3 people's lives pretty much overnight. And that, in my opinion, is a decision that I would not take lightly. An entitled Karen demands that I allow her to use my gazebo on my property so that she can host a photo shoot. And even though I told her no and demanded that she get off my property, she refused to listen, claiming that I was being unreasonable and that I needed to share my property with her. Here's what happened. Okay, so I rent a place along a river in Canada every year in August for 10 to 14 days. My rental includes exclusive use of a cabin, a private deck with a hot tub, and a furnished gazebo. And mine is the only rental with a gazebo. Just east of my place is another smaller cabin with just a dock and a hot tub. Now, I get back from a quick grocery shopping expedition, and as I'm unpacking my car, a young woman walks over and climbs on my deck. She has obviously either just showered or just gotten out of the hot tub, and she's sitting there in a bathrobe. She then looks at me and says, "Hi, I just wanted to stop by and tell you that me and my partner will be doing a photo shoot in the gazebo tomorrow morning. Just letting you know as a courtesy, since we will be moving your boats out for the photo shoot. Don't worry, we will put them back." Now, for reference, the gazebo is attached to the deck, which surrounds my rental cabin. And my kayaks are in the gazebo when rain is forecast. And I did that for good reason because it's been raining off and on all day. Now, to reiterate, I have exclusive use of the entire area, and no one from the other rentals are supposed to come near my area. And this info is part of the owner's orientation for all new arrivals. I'm standing at my cabin door with grocery bags in my hands, absolutely dumbfounded that she thinks she can take over the gazebo that is part of my rental. She then says to me, "So are you staying here alone, or do you have your husband and kids with you? Do you own the cabin? I mean, how much does it cost? How long have you been here in the first place?" She also says this all very quickly with no pauses for an answer. So I just look at her and I say, "You are in my private space and I need you to leave." This entitled Karen then looks at me and tries to say, "Oh, I was just being friendly." But I stop her right then and there. I say to her, "No, you are intruding on my space and invading my privacy. Your questions are intrusive and very creepy. You will not be doing a photo shoot tomorrow or anytime in my gazebo. Please leave right now." This entitled Karen then gives me an attitude. She says to me, "No need to get so snippy. We are doing the photo shoot tomorrow, so you better not interfere. Given your attitude, I think it's best that you head into town by 8 o'clock and don't come back before 2. But when I heard that, I was not backing down. I looked at her and I said, "That is not happening. Get off my deck and get out of my space right now." The entitled Karen then stomps her foot and says, "You are being unreasonable. You're the only one with a gazebo. You need to share it." But I refused to listen any further, so I told her, "No, I don't, and you need to leave now." I then went into the cabin, locked the door, and I messaged the owner immediately. I've been renting here for years, and the owner and I have become really good friends. Well, to make a long story short, they definitely didn't show up for their photo shoot, and the owner had to actually chase them out of the rental the next morning, as they were still in bed an hour past checkout time. But I'm honestly still blown away by this Karen's entitlement, especially with her trying to bark orders at me over something that she clearly had no right to try and claim. Yeah, people who act like this, who are like, "Oh my god, you're being unreasonable. We're going to do this and you need to leave." Like, that kind of attitude is so intrusive, it's not even funny. And what was the deal with her being like, "Ooh, are you alone? Who's with you? How long are you gonna stay here? How much money did it cost to buy this place?" Like, either she really thought she was gonna get some kind of like photo shoot on your property that you were renting, or she was casing the joint and thinking about robbing you. Like, who in their right mind would act like that and be so demanding over something they don't own? But I really love how the original poster handled the situation. They didn't take this sitting down, and they definitely told this Karen to get lost, because the way she acted was completely inappropriate, and she had no right to make these kind of demands out of you. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen screams at me when I was 12 years old, complaining that I didn't give up my seat so that she could sit down. But despite the fact that I did actually in reality offer my seat to her, this entitled Karen still decided to embarrass me in front of literally everybody. And even to this day, I'm still disturbed by her entitled behavior. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, this happened when I was 12 years old, and at that point in my life, I was very shy and I hated confrontation. My family and I had to use the metro in my city during rush hour, and the station and the trains were so full that within seconds, the trains were impossible to fit into. So we had to let a few of them pass before managing to even get on one. I got lucky and I managed to find a seat to sit in. Keep in mind that there were priority seats in the train, which were seats that you had to give up for pregnant women, disabled people, or the elderly, but I was not sitting in one of them. Well, in walks the entitled Karen of this story and her 2 minions, and all of these women are roughly in their 60s. A couple minutes pass and I notice her whispering to her minions while looking disgusted over at me in a horribly exaggerated and obvious way, with her hand shielding her mouth from me and everything. So naturally, I picked up on the fact that she was talking about me, and I also guessed that she wanted to sit in my seat, as I couldn't think of any other reason that she would do that. I then sheepishly offered up my seat, as I didn't want to cause any kind of trouble. Upon hearing my offer, she conspicuously turned her back to me, so I'm pretty sure she just ignored me, so I just kept sitting and minding my own business. She continues whispering about me for a bit, and eventually she turns to me and starts yelling and berating me, claiming that I didn't offer up my seat to her when I literally did not even 3 minutes earlier. She said to me, "I'm old, you're young, you can stand, and I need to sit." I tried politely explaining that I had already offered my seat, and perhaps she just didn't hear me, but she cut me off and didn't give me a chance to speak between all of her demonic screeching. Throughout this whole ordeal, minion number 1 was standing behind her with her arms crossed, like the sidekick of a mean popular girl in a Netflix movie. But minion number 2 had more shame and looked a bit embarrassed, but still didn't think to tell the Karen not to yell at a literal child over something so insignificant. I then tried offering my seat to her again, just for her to huff and puff and raise her head and say no, and she said this in such an indignant way. So after all this shrieking, she didn't even take the stupid seat. She then continued on some stupid tangent about how young people don't respect their elders, and I was feeling petrified the whole time because I just didn't know how to deal with the situation, and I was also scared that I was being yelled at by some stranger. A man sitting a few seats down told her to shut up and leave me alone after about 30 seconds of her yapping, to which she reluctantly walked away, and I am still grateful for him to this day. Keep in mind there were plenty of other people sitting down, some in the priority seats, and yet she actively chose to target a 12-year-old who was sitting in a regular seat. If she really needed to sit down, all she had to do was to nicely ask someone in a priority seat to give up their seat for her, and if they needed it, she could have just asked someone else politely. She didn't look elderly enough for anyone to assume that she would have trouble standing, not to mention that I already offered my seat. But I'm honestly so sick of entitled people like this, because the way she treated me was truly awful. Yeah, that Karen was literally trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. She literally was just being performative the entire time. She wasn't actually upset that you took her seat. She just wanted to make some weird point, and you just so happened to be the closest scapegoat to possibly take her wrath. So for what it's worth, I'm really sorry this happened to you when you were 12 years old, because the way she treated you was completely disrespectful. Am I the jerk for calling out my family for keeping the truth from me for years that my mom isn't actually my biological mother? Here's what happened. So I'm a 17-year-old male, and in March, I learned that my mom isn't my biological mom, but she is in fact my stepmom, and that my brother and sister are my step-siblings. I was only 1 year old when my parents got married, so I don't remember a time before, and my biological mom doesn't want to know me, which means I never grew up with 2 moms or anything like that. I always assumed that I was their biological kid. They basically said I was, and I thought my siblings were blood siblings as well. I knew they didn't call dad their dad, so I figured half siblings, but still siblings. And this is why growing up, I was so confused about why they hated me. They would get so mad at me for talking to them or breathing near them. They used to fight to not sit next to me at dinner and fight over who would sit next to me in the car. They would say I wasn't their brother, but never answered why. And the only answer I would get was that I was pathetic and I was gross. They would also kick me out of the TV and game room because I wasn't allowed in there if they wanted to do something, and I was just so confused all the time. I looked up to them and so badly wanted them to be like older siblings my friends had, or like my friends were with younger siblings. I mean, I really cried about it. I asked my parents why, while also asking my grandparents and extended family why, and nobody ever told me the truth. I also never got why they hated my dad so much, though they never seemed to hate him as much as me. This did a number on the younger version of me. I still have some hang-ups from wanting my siblings to love me, and being rejected every time, and being treated like they would catch something from sitting next to me. I started to question stuff when I needed my birth certificate, and my parents wanted to bring it to school for me. So I searched it out and I found it, and I saw my dad's name, but I didn't see my mom's on there at all. So I asked my parents, and they finally admitted that I was my mom's stepson and my sibling's stepbrother, and that they had not liked that and didn't like my dad. They said they had wanted me to love them so it would soften their hearts and let them accept me as a brother. Well, my family didn't like me saying that my parents had lied, and they didn't like me being mad about it. They think I'm being unfair. They mentioned it a few times, but when they were over at our house a few days ago, I kind of lost it and called them out for lying too, and for keeping the truth from me for so long. I told them everyone everyone left me in the dark and looking like an idiot about what my step-siblings had meant, but they said I expected too much from them. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, there's no way this is okay. This is a conversation, in my opinion, that should have happened a long time ago. Like, I can't imagine spending my entire childhood wondering why my siblings hate me and wondering why my family's acting so weird about what's going on, only to then find out that my mom is not actually my mom and that my siblings who clearly hate me are just step-siblings. Like, that all must be so hard to handle, and I'm so sorry to the original poster. But for your extended family to be like, oh, you expected too much from us, you're overreacting and you're being unfair. Like, that garbage does not stand in my opinion, and the fact that they would try to turn this on you shows exactly the kind of people they really are. So no, you are not the jerk in this situation, because what you're experiencing right now is completely unfair. Am I the jerk for not letting my neighbor back in, who constantly locks herself out of our apartment building and then bangs on my window and buzzes my apartment, demanding that I let her back in? But despite the fact that I don't know this woman and that I've told her to stop doing this to me, she still feels entitled to bother me at all hours of the night. And right now, I don't know if I'm in the wrong or not, because this behavior is truly obnoxious. Here's what happened. So I live in an apartment block, and to access the property after 8 o'clock, you must carry your front door key with you, and we were all told this prior to moving in. A tenant has moved in downstairs, and she leaves the back door unlocked to allow herself to come and go without taking her key. She isn't supposed to do this, and she has been told multiple times to take her front door key in case the door locks, which she has just completely ignored. So now she has started treating me like a literal doorman, knocking loudly on my windows and repeatedly buzzing my apartment to try and get me to open the door for her. This is a daily thing, by the way, and it riles up my dog every single time, and it always occurs after 9 o'clock p.m. I have let her in twice in good faith, then told her the third time to take her key and that I will no longer be answering. Well, she decided to go out with her dog this evening, and again, she didn't bother to take her key. When she started buzzing and knocking on my windows loudly, I shut off my buzzer and I gave my dog a treat and I just closed the doors, deciding to ignore her and continue watching my movie instead. Now, this is where I could be the jerk. It's dark out at the moment, and it's very late, and she's outside by herself with her dog, and she's been out there for about 45 minutes, and we also live in a shady area. It's not dangerous, but definitely not pleasant at night. She has been sat outside on the doorstep on her phone, angrily ranting about me to her friends, like I'm her dad or something like that. But the thing is, I don't know this woman outside of her treating me like a doorman. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk for not letting her in, and honestly, I think you're letting her off a little too easy. If I was in your shoes and she started doing that to me, especially after I told her to stop more than one time, then for starters, I would report her to the building management itself, and then I would call the police and be like, yeah, there's a lady banging on my windows to get in the building, because all of this is incredibly inappropriate. You are not responsible for her getting locked out. I would understand if this was like an occasional thing, but the fact that she does this almost on purpose and thinks that she can boss you around just to try and get what she wants, that in my opinion is incredibly entitled and so inappropriate. And the thing is, if she really did want to get back in the building, she could call the building management herself and get this taken care of. She could tell them that she's locked out, and then someone would show up even if it took a while to let her back in. So in essence, this is definitely not your problem. And if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would ever let her back in the building, especially because it seems that she does this on purpose. Am I the jerk for refusing to be the designated driver for a new girl in our friend group after she cussed me out and screamed at me the last time I gave her a ride? Because right now, my friend group is split down the middle, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 33-year-old male, and I met my friend group when I moved to Paris for my work around 8 years ago. For the sake of the story, we'll call them Laura, Anthony, and Julie. Now, when we go out, here's the deal. I'm the one with the driver's license, so I am the designated driver. I drive and pay for the gas and the parking, and everything related to the car, in exchange for 1 Coke per person. And during the night, if needed, I'll go with you to retrieve something in my car, such as your coat, your makeup, or whatever. When it's time to leave, I'll drive everyone to their place and walk them to their door while the others wait in the car. But the problem started a few weeks ago when we were already at the bar. When Anthony's new girlfriend, who we will call Marie, went to take a second or third round, I asked her to take me a Coke, and she asked me for my credit card. But before I could say anything, Anthony just said, "Come on, babe, I explained to you how it works. Don't make a scene." But she just replied by letting out a groan, and then she walked to the bar and came back with just her drink. I then just looked at Anthony, rolled my eyes, and I ordered myself a Coke, and then I moved on. Well, later that night, Laura came to ask for my car keys and not to come, stating that all the girls were going together. Now, Now, reading between the lines, I understood that it was to get a feminine hygiene product or to get the first aid kit that I always have in my car. Well, a few minutes later, Marie came back charging at me and started screaming at me that I'm a weirdo, questioning why I have feminine hygiene products in my car and that she was right to not pay for my Coke since I'm a creep, while also calling me a freeloader and all this other stuff in the same tone. In fact, she created such a scene that we were all kicked out of the bar. While walking back to my car, Marie kept up her act, screaming insults and other names to me, all while fake crying in the process. So I snapped at her, and I told her, okay, listen to me. Enjoy your ride home because it will be your first and last one. I won't leave you here to make sure you go home safe, only out of respect for your boyfriend. But after that, you can find your own way to and from the bar and the club. And after that, we all got into the car, and the ride home was very quiet. Fast forward to this weekend, and in the group chat, we are all planning a night out, and this would be the first one since the incident. Well, Marie had just joined the group chat, and she actually asked me for my address and gave me hers, also that I could drive her home. But I just reminded her of what happened a few weeks ago, that I was serious, and that I wouldn't drive her home, and that I don't want her at my place at the moment. Well, she called me petty and a jerk before leaving the group chat, and now the friend group is divided. Anthony said he's gonna stay out of it, while Julie and Laura don't agree if Marie is right or not. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. This lady literally called you a weirdo for having stuff ready for your friends. Like, she has no respect for you or your dedication to take care of your friends, and she heavily tried to imply that you're being a weirdo for having any of this stuff in your car. Because you know what? It sounded like you guys had a really good system set up, and she has completely spoiled it for everybody involved. Not to mention the fact that she behaved horribly and disrespected you as a person. So you're definitely not the jerk, but the fact that Laura, Anthony, and Julie are silent in this scenario is just insane in my opinion. Like, how can Anthony ever be like, oh, I'm just gonna stay out of this? Like, no dude, you're definitely involved now. Your girlfriend just swore at this guy and made him feel like absolute garbage for being there for his friends. And then we've got Julie and Laura just sitting there like, oh, I don't know what to think. But it's like, are you kidding me right now? This should be easy to take the original poster's side and be like, yeah, we're gonna stand with you. And I totally get that people might be trying to spare feelings when it comes to Anthony, but Marie was acting completely out of line. And that is not something that you should ever put up with in the slightest. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would never give Marie a ride ever again. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that he's crazy if he thinks that I'm going to his house during the week just to make food for his stepkids? Because right now he is trying to make me feel guilty about my decision. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my parents are divorced. I'm a 16-year-old male, and I now live with my mom, and I visit my dad every weekend. The change happened about a year ago, and the judge won't let me stop going on those weekends, but I wish that I could. I have a younger brother who's 14 and a younger sister who's 11. My dad's married, and he has a stepson who's 10 years old and a stepdaughter who's 7. He asked me a couple of weeks ago to come to his house after school and make food for them before going home. He asked this because he found out that I sometimes make food for my siblings when my mom works. He asked me about it the next weekend I was over there, and he wanted to know why I never did that at his house. But I just said that I didn't. He told me that I could have made food for all 4 of the kids, but I told him no, that wasn't happening. He asked me why, and I said because I don't mind making something for me and my siblings, but I'm not making food for just anyone. Well, he told me that his stepkids are my siblings too, just not by blood, and I told him they're not my siblings and I never said they were. Then, 2 weeks ago, he asked to go cook for his stepkids after school, and this is during weeks where my siblings are home with me and mom, and weeks when they're with him. Well, I told him no, and as a result, he made that weekend incredibly annoying. Eventually, my mom told him to leave me alone. I am just a kid, and I already choose not to keep the 50-50 custody, so he should want to cherish the time that he has with me. But he responded by telling my mom to shut up. Well, I didn't do what he asked. He then mentioned it to me on Sunday, and that's when I told him he's crazy if he thinks I'm going to his house for the week just to make food for his stepkids. He then told me if I can do it for my siblings, I can do it for them. But I told him I love my siblings. That's why I do it. Then it was like he focused on me calling him crazy, and he said it's not crazy to expect family to treat each other the same, and how I'm showing blatant favoritism for my blood siblings and not my siblings through marriage. He told me it's cruel to be so blunt about it. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I do not think you're the jerk at all, because the way your dad is acting is really irrational. It really does seem like he's trying to force all of this on your plate instead of stepping up himself and doing what he needs to do as a dad. Like, the original poster is only 16 years old. Why are they responsible responsible for their step-siblings getting any kind of food? Like, is your dad trying to force you to have some kind of relationship with them? Because it really sounds like you don't want that. And sure, you are related to them by marriage or whatever your dad's trying to spout off, but that doesn't mean that he can force that down your throat, because right now it kind of seems like that's what he's trying to do. And that, in my opinion, is truly unfair for him to do. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for turning him down and saying, no, I'm not going to do this. Because the way he's trying to spin this on you, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate, and he has no reason to treat you like that in the slightest. An entitled Karen insults the pastor's gay daughter and humiliates her in front of the entire congregation by announcing that she's an abomination and a sinner in the middle of our service. But thankfully, this Karen gets shut down by the pastor himself in a way that honestly blew my mind and made me respect this man even to this day. Here's what happened. So for some background information, this takes place in a small town church in the Midwest, and I know you all already have some red flags raised, but it wasn't all that bad. In fact, it was quite nice. Most of the people who attended there were really nice old people, and there was only a handful of people that were well below their 30s. I was easily the youngest person there, and I think I was maybe 13 or 14 at the time. Anyways, I suppose I should introduce the main character of the story. This was the pastor's daughter, and let's just call her Samantha for the sake of the story. I think this was around the time that she graduated high school, and she was awesome. She actually acted as the church's Sunday school person, even though I was the only one attending. And she always snuck me a second granola bar during snack time. Now, a big thing to know about Samantha is that she is a lesbian. And I'm not kidding, she even had a girlfriend at the time who she did bring to church with her. Now, before anyone gets worried for her, she seemed fine. Nobody was really up in arms about this. Aside from the occasional disapproving look from one of the regulars, nobody really said anything. I do remember one conversation Samantha had with the church bus driver who said he was disappointed about her choices and partners, and that was honestly it. Nobody really spoke a mean thing about her. Well, that is until this Karen showed up and basically ruined everything. This Karen was new in town. She had come to our church around winter, and you know the stereotype about the super evangelical woman? Well, she was exactly that. She was super loud, a bit obese, and she was wearing a fancy Sunday dress and a hat. I mean, she was easily the most fanciest dressed person there. She also had 2 kids, a baby boy and a girl in her teens, but I really wasn't paying much attention to her, although I definitely could hear her hemming and hawing about something. Anyways, the story begins during service. Samantha had brought her girlfriend at the time, and Karen and her family was a couple of pews behind them. Just before the incident took place, I was passing around the donation dish, and I distinctly remember that she was glaring daggers at the back of Samantha and her girlfriend's heads as she dropped some cash into the dish. The pastor, we'll call him John for the sake of the story, was giving his sermon when this incident happened. I heard this Karen begin to scream. I think Samantha and her girlfriend might have snuggled a little too close together, I'm not really sure. Anyways, the whole church fell silent in shock as this entitled Karen proceeded to go on the biggest homophobic rant I've ever heard. And I learned 1 or 2 new awful words in the process. She was demanding that Samantha and her girlfriend be thrown out of the church. Well, the whole place was silent for a moment, all before Pastor John cleared his throat and spoke. I can't remember everything he said, but there is one part in his speech I remember so distinctly that it has made me respect him to this day. He said, "My daughter's orientation does not change the love that I have for her, nor does it diminish the worth that God has endowed with her. She is made in the image of God as we all are, and her worth is inherent and unassailable. To suggest otherwise is to misunderstand the very essence of our faith, which is rooted in love, grace, and acceptance, aspects it seems that you just don't hold up yourself." Well, it was like he was handing down the word of God. By the end of it, everybody was giving her a disapproving glare. The entitled Karen's daughter looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. The baby was crying, and Karen's face was legitimately purple in rage. She screamed about this place being a false temple and how we would all burn for defending this sinner, all before she stormed out of the building. And I could legit hear her peel her car out of the parking lot. After that, I think the rest of the churchgoers softened towards her, and I distinctly remember this one old couple asking Samantha and her girlfriend about what their relationship was about a couple of weeks after this incident. And I'm honestly still blown away by this entitled Karen, but more so, I'm still so impressed by Pastor John. Yeah, that pastor's a real one. He not only defended his daughter from some idiot, but he also put this Karen in her place in the most fantastic way possible. He basically said, yeah, you don't actually believe the things that you say you believe, and you're a massive hypocrite for freaking out about someone being a lesbian. So truly, Pastor John is the man, and I honestly wish more people were like him in the world. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for waving my passport in someone else's face after they try to make fun of me for for being British, because right now I'm still fuming over this, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm a 26-year-old British man, and I'm also a dual citizen in the United Kingdom and Ireland, and trust me, this will be important later on. While traveling, I was staying in a hostel, and a group of us there decided to go out to some bars, and one of the people in the group was an American guy that we will call Jay for the sake of the story. Now, for some reason, Jay immediately went against me, and it started with a few jokes that he made about me being British, which I honestly can take, with the bland food and the bad weather stereotypes you might hear. As the bar crawl kept going, he was getting drunker and making more and more comments. For instance, he just started referring to me as the limey and was constantly saying things like he celebrated when the Queen died. It was no longer funny, and he was just all the time making jabs about where I am from. Now, I'm hardly patriotic, and I will be the first to complain about my country, but there was a point where I was getting offended, and it was personally directed at me as he started to imitate and mock my accent. Eventually, I got annoyed, and I asked him why he thought he had the right to constantly be dunking on me and what his problem was with Britain. Well, Jay's comment was along the lines of saying, well, I'm Irish, so it's allowed me to constantly hate on Britain, and my family came to America because of the famine, and a bunch of other comments like that. Well, at this point, I was a bit drunk, and I had lost my temper, so I responded by waving my Irish passport right in his face. I asked him questions like if he had ever actually been to Ireland, or if he knew any of his family there, or even knew anything about the Irish culture, which he barely knew anything, and he didn't know any of his family, and the only time he ever spent in Ireland was a week in Dublin. Well, I started lecturing, saying that a lot of Irish people had immigrated to the United Kingdom, and that after his family spent over 100 years in the United States, he barely had any right to consider himself Irish, let alone think it's acceptable to just hate on random people from another country. Well, the other people on this bar crawl had noticed me losing my temper and laying into the guy and called me a jerk, since he was apparently only joking, and also said that it's stupid to play the I'm more Irish than you game, and I should have just asked him to stop earlier. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. Jay is the reason that people hate Americans overseas, and he's honestly such an embarrassment. Like really, what is this guy doing? Like I'm right there with the original poster. He's not really Irish, like he's never been to his home country, and the only claim he has over it is by having ancestors who came from there. That literally doesn't make any sense, like he's never been back there and he doesn't even know the culture. It's just some stupid cop-out to make some obnoxious jokes that nobody finds funny. Like why not just enjoy the time out and have a good time? It's honestly insane in my opinion, and there's just no good excuse. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because this Jay guy absolutely had it coming. Am I the jerk for refusing to wear a skimpy maid outfit for an exclusive party my friend got invited to, simply because I thought it was incredibly embarrassing and I didn't want to do it? Because right now my friend is saying that I'm being prudish and that I am ruining the party by not doing this. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 22-year-old female, and I live with my 22-year-old female friend, and she recently met a guy at a beach party. She's pretty much obsessed with him because he comes from a well-known, well-off family in the area and has a certain level of status associated with him. She told me that they were sort of dating, and obviously I've been supportive throughout all of it because she is my friend. However, I've met him a few times, and I don't exactly hold favorable opinions of him. I didn't tell my friend because I wasn't fully sure of my views yet, and I didn't want to be negative. Anyways, he's throwing a party soon and invited my friend, and he asked her to bring me along too. He said it was a theme party and that everyone should be assigned a character or a style to wear. He then sent my friend a picture of our outfits, and they were two skimpy maid costumes sprawled on a bed. I immediately told her that I would not be wearing that garbage, and especially not at a party with a bunch of strangers. Initially, she thought maybe I was kidding, but then she understood that I'm serious. She said that wearing those outfits isn't a big deal at all, and that I need to stop being so prudish and serious. I told her that it is very humiliating that this guy thinks it's perfectly fine to request two women to wear that to his party. Like you're seriously asking two girls who are clearly not as rich as you to dress up as maids to your party. I then asked her if she seriously sees nothing wrong with it, and she said no. She explained that he just has a weird taste and that it might be a weird rich people thing. I told her again that I will not be wearing some skimpy maid costume. Not only is it embarrassing, it is especially disrespectful to me because I don't have any sort of meaningful relationship with the guy, and yet he thought it was appropriate to include me in this request. So I told her that I won't be wearing the clothing, I won't be going to the party, and I will from now on avoid her new boyfriend altogether. We had a massive argument, and she said that I'm lame, boring, and I'm not a supportive friend. She said that instead of helping her, I'm ruining everything and I'm being a killjoy. When she fed back to the guy that I'm refusing to participate, he even asked her if getting paid for it would change my mind, and that just made it even worse. Apparently, he told her that I have the right attitude, which makes no sense as I've been combative the entire time, and that his friends would love to get to know me. And I'm seriously just getting angry all over again, even typing this out. Well, I was pretty upset and I told my dad about the situation. The party is tomorrow, and my friend decided to go alone, and she's not really talking to me right now. So am I the jerk or is she? I feel strangely very guilty even though I'm standing up for my boundaries, but right now I really don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk. This is a weird request for this guy to make, and you are completely justified to be like, wait, this is kind of creepy. And it's even worse because this guy's like, oh, what if I pay you to wear this outfit? And it's like, really? Are you serious, buddy? You're not gonna hire me to model for some stupid clothing you want me to wear. And it's not gonna be some skimpy maid outfit just because you want it. That's incredibly creepy and that's not okay. So no, you're not the jerk, but instead your friend and her boyfriend are absolutely the jerk, because they are seriously trying to justify this decision and basically flip the script to make you to be the bad guy. And that is entirely unfair. An entitled old Karen and her stupid husband tried to force me to give up my seat on a flight by claiming that I took her seat. And I'm honestly still blown away by their entitlement. Here's what happened. Over the summer, my 12-year-old daughter and I took a trip to Florida. For the flights, I paid extra to select seats so I could sit with my kids. I also paid for extra legroom. On the flight back, an entitled old woman claimed that I was in her seat, which was right next to her husband. Now, I was sitting in the middle, and my daughter was sitting at the window seat, and her husband was at the aisle seat. Anyways, I pulled up my boarding pass, and I showed her that this was my seat. But she said that her boarding pass also showed my seat, but unlike me, she wouldn't pull it out. Now, I assume the airline must have double booked the seat, so I called the flight attendant over. I explained that this woman says I'm in her seat, and that she says her boarding pass says my seat. I showed him my boarding pass, and then he asked to see hers. Well, her husband handed it to her, and it showed a seat in the back of the plane. He said that she's supposed to sit in that seat and not mine, and if she wants my seat, she can ask me, but I say no. She has to take her seat instead. Well, she did just that. She asked me if she can take my seat, and I said no, since I wanted to sit with my child, and I paid extra for this seat. Well, she and her husband started shouting at me. Her husband called me a stupid entitled jerk, although there were definitely swear words in that sentence instead of what I said. She said she would sue me if I didn't give up her seat, and I just laughed and I told her to get out of my face. She then called me an entitled childless cat lady, and for reference, I had my cat with me and a cat backpack under my seat. I said that while I am a cat lady, I have a child, and then I pointed to my daughter. Well, the flight attendant sternly told her to go to her seat or he would have to get security, and eventually she angrily walked back to her seat while flipping me off. Well, fast forward, and during the flight, my daughter had to use the restroom, so she asked me to ask this entitled jerk if he could get up so she could walk through, because honestly, even with the extra legroom, it was still too tight to walk through. Well, he refused, and then he called me some names that I definitely will not be repeating. I eventually had to call over a flight attendant who made him get up so that she could get out of her seat, and I'm honestly so sick of these old entitled jerks because the way they acted was completely inappropriate. Yeah, this story is packed full of moments where these two old people literally had no leg to stand on. They were not only being incredibly condescending and rude, but also vulgar and disgusting. Like seriously, stop trying to be so difficult and sit in your seat. If you wanted to have seats next to each other, then you should have paid the price in order to do that. And I'm sure this is their scheme anytime they take a flight. One of them buys the aisle ticket and the other person sits in the back of the plane simply because it's cheap and it's easier than getting seats right next to each other. And then they try to double team the person in the middle seat and be like, wow, I can't believe you. You're taking my seat. This is awful. And they try to intimidate you in some kind of way and make you feel like garbage. Like, what a bunch of scumbags. So honestly, I'm right there with the original poster because I too cannot stand when people act this way. I caught my wife texting another man from her work, and now I'm worried that I overreacted when I got a hotel to get away from her, because right now I'm very confused and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, we met young in college and got married right after grad school. A while ago, my wife was texting a coworker, and I honestly thought nothing of it. And a few months ago, while talking, she brought him up during a conversation about her work, and she eventually told me how he was complaining about his wife. And honestly, I didn't think too much of it, because never in a million years would I think that my wife would cheat, but I basically told her it's inappropriate and it could lead to an emotional affair. Well, the conversation seemed to go fine and there was no big deal for either of us. Fast forward, and a few days ago, we got out with friends to a bar. I wasn't really feeling it, and I left at around 10 o'clock, knowing that she was fine with all of her her girlfriends and had a ride home. I stayed up until midnight just to make sure that she was okay, and then I headed off to bed. When I wake up in the morning, I see that she's in bed. I was curious that she didn't text telling me that she was coming home and wanted to see how she got home, so I looked at her phone. I can't say that I've ever looked at her text messages, but maybe my subconscious made me do it. Anyways, I look and that's when I see that she was texting her coworker. And this happened right after I left the bar, telling him that she wanted to see him. He responded that people would see them and all this other stuff, and then my wife responded that they could meet up in the bathroom. Then he responded jokingly by saying, "Oh, it's a good thing you delete your messages." Well, I then scroll up, and yes, she has no older messages from him, even though I'm sure they have texted each other for work. So I wake her up and she is hungover. Now, I'm in shock that she did this, but I show her the text messages, and she looks surprised and so confused. Long story short, she denies ever doing anything physical and says that she loves me and all this other stuff. But despite all this, she won't let me confront him even though she knows that she's screwed up. I then got a hotel, and my dad came down to help me get through all of this. So am I overreacting in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not overreacting. You literally confirmed that your wife is cheating on you. She has been going behind your back just to meet this guy in private and has tried everything she can to keep everything a secret. Like seriously, who knows how long this has been going on? This could have been going on for months, if not years. The fact that she deletes her text messages and this is even admitted by this guy is so disgusting it's not even funny. And sure, I'm right there with you. You would never think in a million years that she would cheat on you in this kind of way. But here you are, literally facing that truth head on, and that has got to be so devastating. So I'm honestly so sorry you're going through this. But with that being said, I think getting a hotel and going to your dad or some kind of family truly was the best move in my opinion. Because this is utter betrayal. There is no good excuse for this kind of behavior, and the fact that she would try to hide this from you and then beg you not to confront him, and that she knows that she screwed up and all this other stuff, like that's just all hot air in my opinion, and this could very well just be another lie that you're being faced with. So in my opinion, I think you're doing the right thing by stepping away and saying, okay, I gotta get this figured out, because your wife has been cheating on you in a capacity that I just don't think you're aware of. And hopefully the truth comes out sooner than later, because what she's doing to you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for not forcing my fiance to wear my father's late wife's wedding dress to our wedding? Here's what happened. So my father lost his first wife more than 30 years ago, and for the sake of the story, we'll call her Mia. It is a very long and complicated situation, but to summarize, my mother is the second on his heart because he always said that the love of his life is Mia, and he always made it very clear. My dad still wears his wedding ring with Mia in one hand, and my mom even bakes a cake for her birthday and leaves my dad alone when it's his anniversary with Mia, and he is feeling down. There are also many photos of Mia in the house, which are also in his room because my father never wanted to change them. Now, as crazy as it may seem, this kind of thing is very normal within couples of this type, and they see that as something normal and sweet, even if it is not. For example, making a cake for Mia on her birthday was the idea of another woman who is also married to a widower and does the same thing in her life. So I've been raised that way, kind of having two moms. Even if it wasn't like that, it was not a healthy childhood, but luckily I've gone to therapy to work on all the issues that this has caused. My mother always says that he gives her the space that she deserves and feels equally loved like he loves his first wife. My siblings and I don't see it that way because our mother deserves better, but if she is happy, then we will not ruin her happiness, so we just never talk about it. Well, this is where the problem comes in. I'm going to marry my fiance, and her mother never had a wedding ceremony, so she doesn't have a wedding dress to inherit. So my girlfriend excitedly told me that she thinks it would be cute to ask my mother if she can use her dress. My mom has mentioned that in the past, and I don't have any sisters, so I thought it was a nice idea. Anyways, I talked to my mom about lending her dress to my fiance, and she got really excited and said yes. My mother had spoken several times about wanting to have a daughter to wear her dress, and she was very excited when my fiance asked her to wear it, and she even tried it on. So basically, that conversation was closed. Now, almost a month after we talked about it, my mom asked my fiance that it would be nice to wear Mia's wedding dress. Now, my fiance told her no, as she feels a connection with my mom and not with Mia. I mean, she doesn't even know Mia. After that, my mother had been asking me to try and convince my fiance to wear Mia's dress, as my father wanted me to put up the typical decoration to commemorate the deceased. But I told him I won't do that. So my mother now wants my fiance to wear Mia's dress just to commemorate her, and for her to be present too, because she was someone really special. And again, I never met her and I don't know who she was. And my fiance even even feels that Mia is a total stranger to her. My fiance wants my mother's dress, and she wants to give her a special place at the wedding since my mother sees her as a daughter, and she as a second mother and wants to have a special moment. I told my mother that I don't intend to do that. It even seems gloomy and weird to me, but I have been raised around Mia's memory that sometimes I just don't even understand if I'm exaggerating or not. So am I the jerk for not wanting this to happen? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk, because seriously, this is overstepping so many boundaries. Like, this is so unbelievably uncomfortable, it's not even funny. So no, you're definitely not the jerk for saying no, because this is incredibly intrusive. An entitled Karen blatantly steals my shopping cart right from underneath me, despite the dozens of carts that she literally passed in order to grab mine. And even though I was obviously using the cart in question, this lady refused to take no for an answer. And I'm honestly blown away by this lady's entitlement, and I really hope that karma comes back to bite her where it counts. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few months ago, and for context, I'm a 29-year-old female, and I had just been in a pretty bad car accident back in April where I had partially wrapped my front end around a tree at 50 miles an hour. Fortunately, I came out mostly intact outside of a broken collarbone, as well as severe muscle strain in my legs. I had gone to the store with a friend, and I had decided that I no longer needed the scooter and wanted to start walking again. She parked as close to the store as she could, but I grossly overestimated the strength I had in my legs, as by the time I got in the store, I was practically using my friend as a crutch because my legs were trying to give out. Thankfully, there was a bench near the entrance inside where she deposited me. She asked if I was sure I didn't want a scooter, and me being stubborn said yes, I was sure. We weren't in any hurry to go anywhere, as we had no other plans, and we were mostly there just to chat with one of the door hosts, as they were a friend of ours. So the plan was to sit and rest my legs while we chatted and then go do our shopping. Now, my friend had gotten me a card to use for when we went shopping, but said she had to go to the bathroom and to wait for her to get back. Now, I was still chatting with our door host friend at the time, so I said that would be completely fine. Shortly after, it started to get busy, so I had to stop talking to the door host so they could do their job. Then I decided to start scrolling through my phone while I waited for my friend to get back. Now, it's important to note that I was leaning forward with my good arm on the side of the cart, as I did this to let people know that I was using it even though it was empty. And I also want to mention that the cart bay was completely full, and someone would also have to go past it in order to get to me. Trust me, this will be relevant later. Just as I was starting to wonder if my friend had fallen in and was just about to start texting her, a lady came up to my cart, and while I was leaning on it, started to put her child in the car seat. I said to her, "What do you think you're doing?" This Karen said to me, "What? You're not even using it." I said to her, "Yes, I am. I'm waiting on my friend in the bathroom." She then looks at me and says, "Well, I need it more than you do. Can't you see my baby's tired?" I then gestured over to the cart bay. I said to her, "There are a bunch of carts that you just passed in order to get to this one. Why didn't you just grab one of those like a normal person?" This entitled Karen looked at me and said, "Why can't you just grab one yourself and let me have this one? I don't have time for this. My baby's tired and you're being rude." So I said to her, "Okay, let's see. I'm just sitting here minding my own business while waiting for my friend, and a random lady is trying to get me to let her steal my cart. But apparently I'm the rude one? Yeah, somehow I doubt that." This Karen then looks at me and says, "Oh my god, why do kids your age always have to act so entitled? Didn't your parents teach you to respect your elders? I'm telling you to give me this cart right now. Now hand it over." She then actually tried to move it, but I had my foot on the cart so she couldn't get very far. I said to her, "I don't care how old you are, and my parents taught me that respect is earned and not given. So take your kid out of my cart and get lost. You're not entitled to just take whatever you want simply because you're older. Go get your own cart." It was at this point that I stood up to yank my cart back, but that proved to be a mistake, as I almost fell into the cart due to my weak legs. Instincts told me to use both hands to catch myself on the cart, but that was also a bad idea due to my broken collarbone. All this to say that I made a very bad decision, and the amount of pain I was in afterwards made for a very vocal landing on the floor. My door host friend heard me yelp and came over to ask what had happened. The lady then told them that she was just walking by when I stopped her and tried to steal her cart. But the door host looked at her, then at me, and then back to this stupid Karen. The door host then said, "I watched her friend give that cart to her when they came in, and she should be back any second now." The entitled Karen then said, "But I have my kid, and this idiot is just faking whatever it is she has for attention. You need to make her get another one." And then off she went. No fanfare, no police called, no justice. Just me sitting on the floor trying not to cry from the amount of pain that I was in. My door host friend friend helped me back up and onto the bench and got me another card just as my friend came back. When I told her what happened, she was pissed, but ultimately agreed there wasn't anything we could do as this entitled Karen was long gone by then. And after that interaction, I definitely ended up needing that scooter after all. Wow, that Karen is absolutely out of line. Seriously, there's a cart bay full of shopping carts that she could have used, but instead of taking one of those, she grabbed the one that someone was leaning on and being like, oh, I'm gonna take it. Like, is she really that entitled that she has to act like a complete moron in public? And sure, this story doesn't have like this stellar ending that everybody would like really hope for, but honestly, that's just life. Sometimes awful people get away with stupid things, and they mistreat people like the original poster here, and then they scamper off back into the darkness looking for their next victim. So to the original poster, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that, and hopefully that entitled Karen gets exactly what's coming to her. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by fabricating my job experience and eventually getting a senior level job that I definitely shouldn't have. And now, after trying to run this job for just a little bit, I'm realizing that I'm definitely unqualified for this high stress position, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I've realized that I am completely screwed. To rewind for a bit of context, I've got a pretty decent career history, education, and work experience for being in my early 30s, but I put a lot of effort into over-accentuating that experience when applying for jobs a few months ago, and I found my way into a vice president of sales position for a mid-sized company after a long interview process that I never thought I'd actually get. I'm also quite certain that they think I'm older than I actually am, but never asked other than the sterling background check. To start things out, I have a dual degree from a well-known school and a master's degree from another very highly ranked school, on top of some professional experience throughout that time in school, mostly working full-time. A few years back, I took what was basically an internship and was basically the vice president of sales for a small company that looked bigger than it actually was. The owner of that company owned a franchise I worked for part-time, and I was making maybe $50,000 a year, basically as an admin assistant with a snazzy title. Because I worked for his original company part-time, it looked like I had been with the company for 7+ years, when in reality, I had done very little and was making maybe $15 an hour most of that time. 2 years ago, I leveraged that to get a regional manager job at a larger company, used my buddy who worked with me as a reference, and I ended up getting hired making over $100,000 a year base pay, plus a bonus that I would also receive. I did okay there, but it was clear that I didn't have the chops for it, and I was still learning. And in the end, I got laid off in March. But thankfully, my boss I was good with said that they would verify whenever I needed a reference. Well, when I started applying for jobs, I listed my experience as their regional vice president of sales and created this hybrid job description about what I actually did and included some senior level duties to make it sound like I was a key employee. I then ended up with an interview for this startup company, completely BSing my way through 5 interviews, and I got an offer for a $200,000 base pay plus a bonus to run their sales division and deal with their external stakeholders. And you know what? I thought I could handle that, but I honestly can't. The job is extremely plug and play. They wanted me to completely revamp their entire sales structure week 1, and I didn't even know what their product did. I tried to BS my way through client calls, but these people have been tearing me apart every week for any strategy that I recommend and are letting me know how worthless I am. If I don't get fired by Friday, I will be absolutely shocked after the call I had today. I got away with it for a few months through being respectful, attentive, and giving 110% towards figuring it out, but it is clear that I don't have the skills needed to be where I am yet, so I'm just completely screwed. They say fake it until you make it, but faking it doesn't work unless you know how to make it yet. I feel like Mike Ross in Suits, but instead of being competent but lying about my credentials, I actually have the degrees, but I over-exaggerated my experiences, and they bought it, so I'm just the idiot in the wrong spot. What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster actually gave us an update. Here's what they had to say. Okay, I was gone for a lot of last night, and oh my god, I didn't expect this to blow up in the way that it did. But many of you have provided phenomenal advice on how I can navigate things, and luckily, everything is such a mess at this place that it's at a point where the ship is already halfway into the water. So as long as I keep it from completely sinking, I would consider it a huge success. So seriously, thank you to everybody from the bottom of my heart. Now, to answer a question that's been asked, is that honestly, the biggest problem is that I'm stuck between this awful love triangle as to what what they actually want to happen. The end goal changes monthly, and every strategy that I propose just gets shut down. There's two partners who both want a different strategy and outcome for a different reason. Then there's this needy jerk third-party investor whose end goal is to simply IPO or get acquired in the next 18 months, which in this case is the absolute best thing that could happen, and they probably should have been looking into this months ago unless they want to toss cash into a fire, all of which are impossible because they're now bleeding money. And half of that time, I'm trying to maintain relationships with very pissed off key account stakeholders. I'm failing on all accounts, and I don't have the experience or skills to navigate any of this garbage. Wow, this is really funny to me because oh my god, I can't imagine being in this scenario. Here you land a job that pays really well, which is all after you literally exaggerating all of your experience. Like, that is already stressful enough, and I'm so sorry that you're going through that, but seriously, it is so funny that you found yourself in this position. Like, if this is not the definition of like what can go wrong when you fake it until you make it, then I just don't know what is. Because the original poster has it right. If you're trying to fake it until you make it, you've got to know something before you try to make it. And it really seems like the original poster is in over his head. So honestly, I really hope this all works out for you, because what you described sounds like a very comedic nightmare. And if you're lucky, this company can get acquired by somebody else. Am I the jerk for not letting my mom see my kids after she tried to fat shame my daughter? Here's what happened. I'm a 31-year-old female, and I was always on the chubby side growing up, and my mom, who's 58, was always hard on me for my weight. It deeply impacted my self-esteem to the point that I ended up losing an unhealthy amount of weight in my teenage years just in some kind of effort to please her. Once I left the house, I gained some weight back, and after years of therapy, I finally felt like I had a healthy relationship to food and exercise. My mom also seemed to stop being obsessed with my body once I wasn't around her 24/7, and our relationship got a lot better. I eventually had a daughter 9 years ago. Let's call her Mia for the sake of the story, and Mia is a sweet girl and adores her grandmother. Well, a couple of days ago, I sent her and her brother, who we will call Liam, to stay with my parents for the weekend. On the car ride home, I noticed that Mia wasn't her usual bubbly self, and I asked her if something was wrong. She was clearly embarrassed, but eventually she started to bawl her eyes out, and she told me what happened. Apparently, that afternoon they had gone out for ice cream, and Mia tried to order a cone with 2 scoops, but my mother stopped her and changed her order to a single scoop and a cup. And when Liam ordered a cone with 2 scoops, my mom didn't say a word. When Mia asked why Liam got a cone and not her, my mother told her it was because she's fat, and she needs to lose weight or nobody will ever find her attractive. And when I heard that, I was livid. The second we got home, I called my mom, and I told her that what she said was completely unacceptable, and that from now on, I would have to chaperone any time she spent with my daughter. My mom then told me that I was overreacting, and that Mia was exaggerating, and that I shouldn't believe a 9-year-old over her. She told me it's probably just something she picked up in dance class, and that I was just projecting. Now, I was pretty sure that she was full of crap, but I wanted to verify anyway. So I had another talk with Mia. I told her that if my mother says anything like that to her ever again, that she needs to tell me right away. She started crying again and told me that not only was this not the first time something like this happened, but also that my mother told Mia not to tell me because I'm fat and she wouldn't want to be like me. Well, I called my mom again, and I told her everything that Mia told me, and all she could say was, "Well, was I wrong? You are fat." And after she said that, I just hung up. She tried to call me again, but I just didn't pick up, and I haven't responded to her ever since. This morning, she got my brother involved, and he thinks it is an overreaction to not respond and that she didn't mean any harm, but I am pretty adamant about not wanting to expose my daughter to any of her BS. I told my brother that if my mother is willing to apologize to Mia and me and agree to chaperone visits, I might consider letting them see each other. But you know what? I know she won't do that. Now, I feel horrible about all of this because it's Liam's birthday next week, and I know he wants his grandmother there, but I just don't feel comfortable with my kids being around her yet. So am I the jerk for the way I reacted to my mom's comments? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. That is so inappropriate. First and foremost, the biggest red flag in my opinion is your mom trying to get your kid to keep a secret. Seriously, that is so messed up. That is absolutely not okay. You do not go to someone else's kid and be like, okay, keep this secret. Don't tell your mom that I said this about you. Like, no, that is not okay. You do not keep secrets with kids, especially with the parents not being aware of what you're talking about. That is highly inappropriate and, in my opinion, incredibly creepy. But more to the point, I think the grandma's behavior in this story is absolutely inappropriate. She has no right to target this kid in this way, and if anything, this is just the original poster poster's mom, literally picking up where she left off in the original poster's childhood. And to that end, I don't blame you in the slightest for being like, no, you're not going to talk to my kid like that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for standing my ground and not letting my suite mates take my dorm room after I found out that my roommate would not be living with me during our fall semester? Because right now, my roommate is screaming at me saying that I'm a jerk and that I don't understand his needs. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, our college randomly assigns suites and rooms to students that apply for dorming. It is not chosen by the students, only the buildings and who they wish to room with. I'm a 19-year-old male and I'm moving to college in the fall. I am in the process of getting to know my suite mates and roommate since I chose to do random assignment because I had applied late to college and everyone already chose roommates, so I had to go with the first bed that was open. After I had been assigned a room, my actual roommate added me and we began talking. However, he soon blocked me and I could no longer contact him. A week after this happened, my suite mates got in contact with me. They added me and we started to talk. They then asked me if I happened to know my roommate since he was the only one they hadn't talked with yet. I said yes, but after we talked a bit, he just blocked me. We then all had the assumption that he would be no longer dorming with us, hence the need to block me on Instagram. So after much discussion, that's the best answer we could come up with as to why he did so. And I thought that was the end of the discussion, but it seems I would be wrong. One of my suite mates, let's call him Phineas, that's not his real name, would later tell us that we should vote on who got the room. Now, me being confused, asked him why since I got the room fair and square by it being assigned to me. But he said that he wasn't aware that the rooms were assigned and that even if they were, we should vote on who gets it anyway since he wanted it. Well, I told him no for a second time and I wanted it to be over with. He then told me that he had a girlfriend and that I could understand that, right? Well, no. I get that she's going to visit every now and then and that it would be nice to have some privacy, especially if they were going to do some spicy things, but I already told him that I wanted the room since it was assigned to me and that if he wanted a single, then he should have booked a single. He keeps pushing the matter when I shut him down every time, and I told him that if he continues to talk about it, I would go to the RA and get in contact with the school about the whole situation and how Phineas wanted to violate explicit rules and guidelines of living in the dorms. Now, for more context, our college does not allow the opposite sex to enter the bedrooms of the student and may only stay in the common area with a suite door open to the hallway. And this was a strict rule that even adheres to parents and family. The guy then called me a jerk and said that I don't even need it since I'm single and I would never understand. My other suite mate, who we will call Ferb, obviously not his real name, thinks that we should see who needs the room more and give it to them. But I think that it rightfully belongs to me since I was assigned the room and bed, and that if I got so lucky that I didn't have a roommate anymore, then that was my luck and not theirs. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, and it's very obvious that your roommate is jealous that you've got this massive room to yourself. Like seriously, he's just jealous that he doesn't have that room and you get to share all that space by yourself. Like you definitely got a good deal and that is not anybody's problem except for his. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and the way he's acting is incredibly entitled. Am I the jerk for agreeing with my wife when she called my mom a piece of garbage parent after she brought up something that I did when I was 14, despite the fact that I've grown up and done a lot with my life ever since then? Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my birth family never respected me. I always got treated differently from the rest of my siblings, and I was never ever good enough. I'm the only one with a college education, and I received my master's degree. No one from my side of the family came to my graduation or even acted like they cared, while my wife's family threw me a huge party. Now, I don't know if it stems from me being a weird emo kid when I was a teenager, because my family still says dumb things like, oh, remember when you had green hair? As if that was a defining moment in my life. And for reference, I had green hair for maybe 3 months when I was 14 years old. And that's really an odd thing for my family to be hung up on. My sister-in-law was pregnant, and I share the same name with her father, who passed away last year. For the sake of the story, we'll say that name is Larry. She named her baby after both of us because I helped her out financially and encouraged her to finish her degree. Well, I saw my mother, and me and my wife were babysitting little Larry because my sister-in-law was working. My mom then said that we should dye little Larry's hair green. Well, when she said that, this set my wife off, and she started yelling at my mom, saying how pathetic it was that with all of my achievements, my mom was still upset that I dyed my hair green as a teenager. And then she called my mom a pathetic piece of garbage parent. My wife then asked my mom to leave the house because my sister-in-law wouldn't want little Larry around such judgmental trash. Well, I stood there for a few seconds, and then I responded by saying, "She's right, you should leave." Well, my mom thinks that I should have stood up for her, but I believe her obsession with my once green hair is really odd, and my family needs to let it go. So am I the jerk for agreeing with my wife? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk, and yes, it is very weird that they're holding on to what you did when you were 14. Like seriously, they're holding that much of a grudge that you did something that they didn't approve of? Like that is seriously toxic and so weird. It sounds like you've done so much with your life, but these people want to keep you as that weird kid at 14 who was trying to understand himself. And that's not fair for you in the slightest. Like seriously, you've grown up since then. And it's also so funny that your mom's like, "Wait a second, she can't talk to me like that. You need to stand up for me when I make condescending remarks about you." Because that's basically what she was saying. Like it almost sounds like she wants this to be some kind of like inside joke with the family, but this is definitely not reciprocated on your end. You have not done anything to indicate like, "Yeah, this is funny, let's keep this joke alive," or anything to suggest that you're in on the joke in some kind of way. So in my opinion, her remarks were completely out of line, and it's so cool to see that you have a wife who's willing to stand up for you when someone says something awful. And if anything, I think your mom absolutely needs to apologize. My entitled sister is toxic beyond measure, constantly screaming and giving an attitude to me and her parents, while also directing this energy at pretty much anybody who gets in her way. And despite the fact that I've told my parents about this constantly, they refuse to do anything and even go as far as blaming me for her bad attitude. And I'm honestly so sick of it, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My sister, who's 15 years old, has always been selfish. Ever since she was a kid, she would never share. She would never do anything for anyone else, but would expect everyone to do everything for her. Obviously, as a small child, that is understandable, but she's never grown out of it. And my parents have always dismissed this as just her personality. My sister has always been rude to me specifically, and she demands that I do things for her. She demands I make her food, and demands that I pay for her things, and that I do this or that or anything else. But if I ask the same, she just shouts at me. I don't remember the last time she's done anything for anyone out of the kindness of her own heart. She just shouts. There's been times I've been violently ill and bedridden due to a chronic illness, and I asked her if she could get me some water, and she shouted at me, even though I make her food and drink multiple times a day, because if I don't, she just won't eat. She's also rude about everything. Anytime someone talks to her, she has a tone in her voice or she shouts. She is so difficult to have any kind of conversation with. If I say nice things, she's rude to me, and then she screams, and it's just awful. And my parents say nothing, but if I dare talk half as bad as she does, I get told off. I've mentioned countless times the favoritism and how they see her as a perfect little angel, and they coddle her and rarely tell her off, and has never given her any discipline, yet they have always done that to me, and they've acted like I was the crazy one. She's also incredibly manipulative. She always plays the victim and turns my parents against me when she is in the wrong. I told my parents that one day, people are going to have enough of her in the real world, and I'm going to have to cut contact if her behavior continues. And again, they just won't listen to me, and instead thought that it was just sisterly love, and that this is normal sister behavior and not concerning behavior. But thankfully, all of that changed this week, where we went to a family reunion, and my cousins humbled her. She was doing her normal toxic behavior. She was talking to them rudely and rolling her eyes at them, which is something she does to pretty much everybody. And my 23-year-old cousin wasn't having it. He said to her, "Listen, if you keep acting like this in the real world, you are going to get slapped in the face," while also saying that she needs to cut her attitude. And my sister just rudely said, "Yeah, sure, okay," as if he was stupid or something like that. And my 12-year-old cousin added that he always feels like she judges him because she always just glares at him. Now, obviously, my parents couldn't deny this, and it was actually a really big wake-up call. They realized her behavior isn't just to immediate family, and it isn't normal to outsiders. And she would do this same behavior to people that she isn't even as close to, and not just to her parents and sister. So now my parents are telling me that I can't get her food and water, and she needs to do some things for herself, and they are forcing her to be independent. And they've even been talking about disciplining her when she is toxic. And trust me, she is not taking it well. She's been screaming at me even though it's not my fault, and I haven't done anything wrong. It's a bit late, but I'm glad they are finally putting their foot down, and no longer looking at her as this perfect little angel who can do no wrong. But regardless, I seriously hope they stick with it, because her behavior is absolutely awful. Yeah, your sister sounds incredibly spoiled, and this really sucks because it seems like this is your parents' fault. Don't get me wrong, your sister does have a bad attitude, and that is her problem, but the parents have basically said, "Oh, this is fine, don't worry about it." They've played favoritism, and they've basically allowed this to happen across the board. And you know it's real and it's bad when someone else who isn't around you all the time blatantly blatantly says, hey, you've got to stop that attitude. Like, this is not okay, and seriously, it is not something that's going to work in the real world. So you know what? Despite the fact that they were neglectful in the beginning, it sounds like your parents are coming around and figuring out your sister's attitude, because the way she's been acting is completely inappropriate. And hopefully with time, all of this can finally get switched around. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled friend sends me over 69 messages after I tell her I'm taking a day off from trying to teach her English. But now I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I need to start off by saying that I'm a people pleaser and a doormat, so be aware that I'm not innocent in any of this, and I am responsible for letting the situation progress and worsen without firmly shutting it down sooner. Believe me, I know it is also my fault. Now, I speak English fluently. I'm not perfect by any means, but my level is C2, so I am definitely proficient. My friend doesn't speak English very well, but I love helping people, and so I offered her free lessons to improve her speaking skills. She was supposed to study on her own, and I gave her a list of links that provide easy and clear grammar rules on all of the necessary topics to reach a B2 level. Well, she lost said list a number of times, she didn't study, and she stopped following lessons with me due to her depression. Now, I don't blame her because I have my own issues, but now August is coming to an end, and she is anxious because she needs her English to improve in order to find a job. She wants me to give her 2-hour lessons every day after work, and despite the fact that I work full-time, I consented, which honestly was my first mistake. Fast forward and we get to Saturday, and I told her last week and then reminded her on Friday that yesterday would have been my day off and that I would have gone out to do my own thing. She was also allowed to send me messages, which is my second mistake, and I figured that I would reply whenever I had the time. Now, take a guess. How many messages do you think I got? Literally, I got 69 messages. I counted them. It was insane. She would ask me silly questions that I have either already replied to a bunch of times or that are easily answered by a search on Google. We were supposed to do a 4-hour lesson today, but frankly, I am so pissed off that I haven't even replied yet. I can tell from her tone in the messages that she is annoyed and mad. She wrote 3 or 4 times by saying, okay, so when you reply, we'll figure this out, which to me reads like she just wants me to reply back faster. Like, who in their right mind sends 69 text messages to someone who clearly and explicitly said that this is my day off and I will be out and about? I'm honestly so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, this doesn't sound like a friend, but instead it sounds like someone who's very lazy, who's basically trying to place like all responsibility on learning English on your shoulders and yours alone. You've given her resources so she can learn English. You've done everything you can, and you've given way more time than anyone would reasonably give. So in my opinion, especially after receiving 69 text messages, I would tell her, I'm sorry, but this is not working out, because this right here is insane behavior, and I really think you would be better off shutting this all down now instead of dragging this out and trying to people please her any longer. An entitled manager at HR and payroll demands that we automate all of her decisions so that just about anybody from her department can have access to anything that HR and payroll would normally have. And even though we told her that this was not a good idea, she demanded that we did it, resulting in one of the greatest forms of karma I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. In my first job, I worked in IT as an access and permissions administrator at a large company with a significant technological debt. The environment included custom software dating back to Windows 9 and even the DOS era. Initially, the work was quite tedious, involving a lot of back and forth communication between multiple departments, and we had to ensure that each employee had the necessary training and documentation to access data in the scope requested by their manager. Additionally, we needed approval from the manager of the department related to the system role in question. On top of that, the company's excessive paper-only bureaucratic workflow made this work go at a snail's pace. I mean, a single SAP account for a blue-collar worker required at least 3 forms signed by different people. The heads of departments responsible for signing those papers didn't feel any urgency to send them to us quickly. A good example of this is when I myself waited over 2 weeks after being hired in the IT department before my first account was ever set up. Until then, I only had a guest account that allowed me to access the main internal website with the company's procedures, regulations, and other basic information. Up to this point, each signed form had to be physically delivered to us, which was agonizingly slow given that the company had multiple branches. So we decided to automate away the paperwork. Our first step was to allow the use of scanned documents. It was a partial success because while it did eliminate courier delays, management still required us to sign signed the physical copies afterwards, which we mass stamped at the end of each month. The next step was to introduce a fully electronic workflow. We faced significant resistance from upper management, so we had to settle on a system that mostly replicated the existing paper processes. Despite this, it honestly really was a game changer. We created presets that managers could select and customize as needed, while also using data from these customizations to create better fitting presets. We also developed workflows that automatically generated and assigned subtickets for necessary approvals and tracked how long it took, even sending reminders if needed. And finally, we got an approval from HR to access layoff data to generate a user block or removal tickets. Now, sometime after we rolled out the new system, the HR and payroll manager made a big fuss. She was furious that her team was still waiting weeks to get their permissions and questioned whether our work had been for nothing. Now, with all things considered, that really struck a chord with me. Inside, I was overjoyed, but I did my best to keep a neutral expression. At that time, we were working on summary reports with burn down and bottleneck charts, and I already knew that tickets requesting HR payroll access were spending over most of their lifespan waiting for her or one of her sub-managers to approve them. Well, the manager immediately went on the defensive, claiming that she couldn't keep up with the amount of tickets. She then requested a change. She wanted any request from her employee to be automatically approved within the relevant scope of their sub-department. For example, a request for an HR worker to have full HR access and limited payroll access would be automatically approved for HR access, but not for payroll and vice versa. Now, I was skeptical, but I wasn't exactly in a position to argue. I asked my boss to join the discussion and explained that the goal was to prevent overly permissive approvals that could lead to unauthorized access. Basically, we wanted to keep people out who didn't belong there. I tried my best to convince her to brainstorm together potential edge cases before making a blanket approval, but she was already set on her decision and wasn't interested in discussing details. So my boss just shrugged and said it would be her responsibility. He told her to write up an official document outlining the change and that he would proceed with the implementation. The only request we had was to include a line that each such request would still be created and assigned to as normal and marked as automatically approved by the HR manager's decision. I then uploaded the scan into our system and, anticipating that it would eventually backfire, made a photocopy to keep handy in the top drawer of my desk, with the original copy going to the archive. Well, a few weeks later, she stormed into our room, and the speed with which she flung open the door made it clear that she was furious. She demanded to know why we had granted full access to payroll data to her subordinate. Now, I think it was the only time I ever heard anyone yell in that company, so I calmly reminded her that she requested to automatically approve in-department access requests. Well, she wasn't having it, explaining that one of her low-ranking subordinates from the payroll subdepartment had access to the salaries of everyone in their department, including their managers, and was unhappy with the paycheck disparity. She then said to me, "Isn't that obvious that they shouldn't be able to do that?" I responded by saying, "Well, yeah, to a human, but that decision was automated away by your request." I then handed her a copy of the document that she had signed, which instructed us to automatically approve any and all such tickets without any exception. Well, immediately afterwards, she asked us to roll back the change while she wrote up another document to cancel the previous one. In the following days, she meticulously reviewed all of those tickets and requested us to reduce access for several users. Now, I have to admit, she did a thorough job and kept up a good pace in reviewing new requests, and was doing it daily instead of once every week or 2 weeks as before. In the end, we managed to distill a subset of permissions that could be approved automatically and proceeded to implement a similar approach with other departments. Because trust me, I'm sure this manager absolutely learned her lesson. Yeah, this is one of those situations where the manager was way too lazy to do her own job, so she wanted to automate it in some kind of way, and that backfired in a spectacular fashion. Here you are, the IT professional, trying to be like, wait a second, this is not a good idea, and she's like, no, this is what I want to do. So getting her to sign off on all of that, and then keeping a copy on hand because you knew this was all going to go down, in my opinion, is super hilarious and absolutely deserved, because if she had just done her job, all of this could have been avoided. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for leaving my fiance after receiving pictures of him cheating on me at his bachelor party? Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, I was planning my wedding with my 30-year-old fiance, who we will call Jake for the sake of the story. We've been together for 4 years, and honestly, I thought that we had a great relationship. His bachelor party was last weekend, and it was something that we had both discussed and agreed upon. He was going to Vegas with his friends for a few days, and I was totally on board bored with it. Fast forward to Saturday night, and I was at home binge watching my favorite show when I received a message on my phone that made my heart drop. It was Jake's best friend, who we will call Mike. We're all friendly, so I don't think much of it at first. But when I opened the message, my heart sank further. It was a series of pictures showing Jake with another woman, obviously holding her waist and laughing together at a club. The caption read, "I thought you'd want to see what your fiance is up to. This is not cool, man." And when I saw this, I was in shock. I felt like the ground had been pulled out from underneath me. I immediately called Mike, and he explained that he didn't want to be a part of Jake's betrayal and thought that I should know as well. He told me that this wasn't a one-time thing and that they had seen Jake get pretty close with this woman throughout the night. The next few hours were a blur, and I went through a wave of emotions, from anger to heartbreak all the way to disbelief. I couldn't understand how someone I thought I knew so well could do this kind of thing to me. I finally decided that I had had enough, and I went to my parents' house to process everything. The next day, I called Jake, and when he finally picked up, he sounded cheerful as if nothing was wrong. I then confronted him directly, and I asked him about the pictures, and when I did, he went silent. Eventually, he tried to brush it off, saying it was just harmless fun and that I was overreacting, and that just fueled my anger even more. So I told him that I couldn't continue the relationship, and when I said that, he panicked, begging me to reconsider, but I stayed firm. I have always believed in healthy boundaries and trust in a relationship, and what he did shattered that completely. I packed my things and I told Jake that it was over. I wish I could say I felt better after that, but honestly, it was heartbreaking. Now that I'm back home, I'm trying to put my life back together. My friends are supportive, but I just can't shake the feeling that I'm making a mistake by leaving him. So am I the jerk for ending our engagement after finding out about him cheating? What should I do? No, I don't blame you in the slightest for doing that, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Like seriously, what he did is a huge betrayal of trust. Like, you two are getting married. This guy has no excuse for acting like this. I mean, thank God that Mike actually had your back and was like, "Hey, I thought you might want to know what's actually going on." Like seriously, Mike is a real one, and he saved you from a lot of heartbreak. So no, you are definitely not the jerk in this situation, because what Jake did is absolutely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for asking for my money back from a restaurant that literally overcharged me for a dish that I never even ordered? Here's what happened. So I've just been overcharged in a restaurant and ended up in a really awkward situation. And I'm wondering if my reaction was correct or not, because the way they reacted was so odd to me. My girlfriend and I went to eat at this fairly small restaurant that is close to where we live, and this place opened up 6 months ago, but it doesn't seem like it's doing very well. When we went to pay the bill at the counter, it was 35% more than what I had calculated from the prices on the menu. Several people, I think all family, were stood around, so we didn't have a chance to look the bill over, and I assumed maybe I had made a mistake, so we just paid it and left. Well, as soon as we got outside, I said to my girlfriend, "Was that bill right?" And she said, "No, I thought it was wrong as well." So we decided to go back, and my girlfriend said really nicely, "Hey there, I think you may have made a mistake with our bill." She is super sweet and polite, and the woman was kind of dramatic about it, but got our receipt to look at it. It turns out that they had charged us for one drink that we didn't have, and quite quickly gave my girlfriend the money back for that, but in a weird dramatic way, as if we were making a fuss about nothing, but that only accounted for about 5% of the 35% overcharge. Eventually, they tell us that they didn't have the main dish that we had ordered, so instead they gave us a different version that cost 30% more than the things we actually asked for. And here's the thing, we were not told that they didn't have the dish that we actually ordered prior to being served the food. At no point prior to giving us the bill was it communicated that we were getting a different dish, let alone one that would be way more expensive. The worst part is that rather than apologizing and giving us back the overcharge, they just kept saying, "Oh, sorry for that," as if that should be the end of the matter and waiting for us to just leave. The guy just kept repeating that they didn't have the dish that we ordered, and I was smiling and saying, "Okay, but that's not really how this works," until it became very awkward, and I ended up having to say, "Listen, I don't know why I'm paying extra for something I didn't order," at which point the woman says very dramatically, "Oh, so you want your money back?" To which I said, "Yes, actually I really do." They did then give me my money back, but I don't think it should have ever gotten to that point that I needed to ask for it, and now I have to walk past that restaurant every day on my way to work. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are not the jerk for going back there and demanding your money back, because these people were literally praying that you would not ask for your money back so that they could get away with overcharging you more. Like, that is ridiculous, and there is no good excuse for that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because the way these people acted, in my opinion, is incredibly unethical. Am I the jerk for starting my wedding ceremony before my mom could show up, because she's saying it's now my fault that she wasn't on time since I didn't call or text text her to see where she was at, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so the day of the wedding started out as they normally do. I'm the bride, and I was inside getting ready, and the final touches were being made outside. After I was almost ready by noon, my mom had to run back to the hotel 20 minutes away to change and come back with my grandma and a family friend. Now, the invitation says that the ceremony is at 2 o'clock, and as per usual, we were a little late starting, but it wasn't anything crazy. Well, the next thing I know, I'm walking down the aisle with no mom, no grandma, or my family friend in sight. The ceremony continues, and it's over before we know it. Well, we still hear nothing from them. After about 45 minutes, they finally pull up. I then proceed to go and tell them that it's over, and that they missed it, and that 2 o'clock means 2 o'clock. Well, my mother immediately becomes hostile and proceeded to blame the bakery for not having buns ready. Then they said they were stopped by a train, and my personal favorite excuse is that apparently it's my fault because I didn't call or text them to see where they were. And I'm just thinking, excuse me? The invitation said 2 o'clock. It's also important to note that the officiant also had another wedding to get to after mine, so it really was a tight schedule. So am I the jerk for not holding up my ceremony? I found out the real reason why they were late, and it all comes down to the fact that she wasn't done getting herself ready, therefore she held up everyone from getting here. But apparently she's mad at me because it's my fault. What should I do? No, this is definitely not your fault, and honestly, it all falls on your mom for not being ready and prioritizing her time. Seriously, anything that she might need is completely null and void in my opinion, especially when you're about to walk down the aisle. Like, she really should have had all that figured out well in advance, and that in my opinion is definitely not your fault. My entitled aunt has been fat shaming me my entire life and decided that she was going to give me money for my 18th birthday so that I could get on Weight Watchers and finally get in good health. But after denying her gift as well as dealing with her awful behavior my entire life, I finally put my foot down and decided that enough was enough. But now, as a result, my aunt is offended and my parents think that I overreacted. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm a female and I just turned 18 yesterday, but it seemed to have caused a bit of drama in my family, so I'm asking for honest, objective opinions on whether I'm wrong. I'm using a throwaway account because this situation is obviously very humiliating for me. For reference, my weight has always been made fun of in my family. My aunt specifically has always been very unkind and fat shamed me, even when I was younger and struggling with my body image. She used to tell me that my clothes look so small on me, and that even her clothes are probably small for me. She used to remind me to go on diets constantly, and I'm currently 320 pounds if that adds any context to it. Now, I had not seen my aunt in a while, and for the most part, I was really glad to see her for my birthday. I was slightly dreading if she would say anything to me because I'm aware I have gained a lot of weight since I saw her last, but she made just a few comments, so I thought that was the end of it. I was opening a birthday card that she gave me a few hours later, and it had money in it, but it also had a note that said that this money was for Weight Watchers, and that for once I can finally make some real change. Now, this was humiliating, and I asked her about it, and she said that she could tell that I was miserable, and that I probably look really good underneath all that fat. And she even said this in front of my parents, and it was very embarrassing. Well, I told her I'm not accepting the gift, and that she's making me feel stupid, but she said that she was just worried for me and my health, but I just don't believe this. She has made fun of my weight for years, even before I was a teenager, but my parents think I was overreacting, and I should have just accepted it right then and there. My aunt has a notoriously big mouth, and my parents think that she's going to tell our whole family, so they're getting kind of worried about what I've done. So am I the jerk for refusing this birthday gift? What should I do? No, of course you're not the jerk. This is insane. First of all, I want to say your parents suck, and they have allowed this to happen for way too long. Like, seriously, they are literally just a bunch of spineless doormats. They've allowed their daughter to be harassed by their aunt for what, 18 years? Like, that is insane, and there is no good excuse for that. Like, your parents are 100% horrible people for allowing this to happen. And based off the way they're reacting, I bet they were one of the people that was like making fun of you when you were a kid. Like, sure, it was your aunt, but you know what? Your parents probably found it funny, and that's why they never said anything. And by the way, they literally allowed this to happen more times than you can count. Because I can guarantee you this is not the only conversation they've had about this, because if they're saying this in front of you in public, then you better believe they're saying this in private behind your back. But more to the point about your aunt, this is literally not a gift. This is not something you give to someone and be like, well, I'm just really worried about your health. It's like, no, you're not. That's not what's going on at all. In reality, this is literally the curtain call for your aunt basically treating you like garbage throughout your entire childhood. Because guess what? Now that you're 18 years old, you can literally tell her to get lost and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Like, she now knows that she can't get away with this because because you're now an adult and you can absolutely tell her off if you want to. So this is like the last little feather in her cap of treating you like garbage for years. And that is absolutely not fair for you in the slightest. So no, you are completely in the right to be like, I'm not accepting this. This is humiliating. Because that's exactly what it is. And you know what? I hope your aunt goes around saying something to the rest of the family. Because seriously, this is a great opportunity to expose your aunt for the horrible person that she is. And even your parents for letting this happen for what, 18 years? Like, come on. No one in their right mind should be on your aunt's side. And if they are, then guess what? You now know what they actually are like, and you know you don't want anything to do with them. At least that's how I feel. Like if I found out my family members were like, wait a second, why are you being so rude? You are fat. You need this, Weight Watchers. Like I would lose my mind and be like, okay, all of you are gone. I'm not dealing with any of you. Because your weight and your health and all that stuff, that is your business. And you don't need anybody trying to like look out for you or fat shaming you, especially from a scumbag bully like your aunt. Because that's all this is. Like she is literally a grade A bully. You've been an easy target with your parents' permission, and now that you're 18, this is like the last little dig she can make at you before you move on with your life. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to allow my brother to drive with us to the family vacation, as he is known for being very obnoxious and very hard to deal with? Because right now, my mom is very upset, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So for a bit of context, my partner and I have autism, and my 15-year-old brother has severe ADHD. My brother is immature, careless, and deep in puberty. He's known for being a handful, he's constantly late, and destructive with his belongings and others. For instance, he's broken multiple phones and laptops that my mom has bought him. This Friday, we're planning a family trip across the country, and my partner and I were looking forward to a peaceful road trip alone, having planned our drive and stops in advance. However, today my mom found out that my partner would be driving and decided to have my brother ride with us, saying, well, since you're driving anyways, he can come with you. She and her boyfriend are driving separately in a 2-seater van due to the amount of stuff they need to bring. Now, we really don't want to babysit an unruly 15-year-old for 4 hours, especially since we weren't asked nicely and just told that he would be with us. Normally, my mom and her boyfriend drive in 2 separate cars, so we assumed that would happen again. But this year though, with my partner joining us, they saw an opportunity to shift responsibility. While we understand their reasoning and offered to take him if absolutely necessary, we were not happy about the situation. And when I talked to my mom, she didn't have convincing arguments. For starters, she tried to say that driving separately is expensive, but we offered to cover the extra gas since we were causing the inconvenience in her eyes, but she declined. Also, he can't drive with our sister because they'll arrive later. However, we're not planning to arrive on time either, as we're taking a more relaxed trip. My partner, who is an anxious driver, prefers not to drive in a convoy and likes to rely on her sat-nav, especially due to her autism. But in the end, our conclusion is that we could take him if necessary, but we will be doing it reluctantly. We have a lot to bring and we aren't sure everything will fit. Plus, if he's coming with us, he will need to follow our schedule, meaning that we likely won't arrive on time. But now, my mom is upset and said that she'll ask my sister after all, despite never asking us first. We feel we offered a reasonable compromise, but she's implying that everyone has to make sacrifices, while essentially making my brother our responsibility. So are we the jerks in this situation? What should we do? No, you're not the jerks. Your mom literally went to you and tried to muscle your brother into your car, all because she doesn't want to deal with him. Like, this really is reading as if she's trying to kick the can down the road, and that's not fair for you in the slightest. And the fact that she tried to force you to take your brother with you, in my opinion, is just further evidence that she was trying to make this happen no matter what. Even going as far as trying to guilt trip you by being like, oh, I guess we'll ask your sister anyways. And honestly, with what you described, I don't think you should compromise with these people at all. Like, they literally tried to force this brother into your car, who, by the way, is very careless and very immature. Like, who knows how obnoxious he's gonna be during this entire trip, and that's gonna be your problem the entire time. So no, you're not the jerk for refusing to take your brother, because he really does sound like an absolute handful. Am I the jerk for telling my coworker that she still has to pay me for the unused tickets that she never used that I gave to her? Because right now she's angry with me for even requesting it in the first place. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've worked with my coworker for about a year now. She is nice and I enjoy working with her, and we've talked about hanging out outside of work a few times, but our schedules never match since I have kids and she has a boyfriend out of town that she visits frequently. money. A few months ago, she forgot her lunch, so I shared mine with her. Since then, she's been slowly starting to ask for more things and taking more liberties with my stuff. For example, I usually have crackers or granola bars in my bag in case I forget my lunch, and I also have hard candies since we can't chew gum at work. At first, she would ask for the candies, then she just started going straight in the bag to get them, and that was the same with the crackers and the bars. If I have something that she doesn't like, she'll go in there, say something like, "Ew, never mind," all before closing my bag back up. Now, I did address this behavior with her because one day I actually did forget my lunch. When I got to the break room, I saw her eating the crackers that I had in my bag, and I was a little annoyed that she went in my bag when I wasn't there, but I just assumed that she didn't have lunch until I saw her take her food out of the fridge and put it in the microwave. I then reminded her why I keep the snacks in my bag and said that I didn't have anything to eat now that she's eaten this and her food. She eventually apologized but did not share her food with me since it was made special by her boyfriend. Now, more to the issue, I bought tickets to the circus for my kids and siblings, and some of my siblings couldn't make it, so I had extra tickets. So I told her about them, that it was happening that night, and I told her the price, and I asked if she wanted to buy them. Well, she agreed, and I texted them to her. When she got them, she said, "Oh, is it okay if I pay you Saturday?" And I just said sure because I had no reason not to. Saturday comes along, and she's not at work, and no money came through on Cash App. On Tuesday, when I saw her, I asked for the money, and she said to me, "Oh, I never ended up going. My friend didn't want to go in the end." I said to her, "Okay," but she replied by saying, "Well, I never used them. We didn't go because you never told me it was that night. I thought we had 2 weeks to use them." But I said to her, "I told you before I sent them to you that it was that night, and to make sure you can go before I send them." She said, "Well, I don't know what you want since I didn't use them." I said to her, "Well, I want money for the tickets. When you knew you weren't going to use them, you should have texted me back because I could have given them to somebody else." Well, in response, all she said was, "My bad," and then she walked away. Later that week, she asked if she could take me to a baseball game to make up for the tickets that she didn't pay for, and she said that she'll pay for the tickets so that she won't owe me anymore. Well, the baseball tickets are less expensive than the ones I got, and I don't want to go to a baseball game anyways. So I just told her that I need the money, and now she's mad at me. So am I the jerk for asking for my money? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk, because she basically took those tickets and did nothing with it. When she said, "Okay, I'm gonna go to this thing tonight," but then she tried to backtrack and be like, "Well, we didn't use it and you didn't tell me what day it was," even though that's completely false and she absolutely knew what was going on. Like, this is definitely one of those people who just uses everybody in their friend group and they never reciprocate in the slightest. Like, all she has to do is pay for the tickets and all of this is done. But instead, she's giving you the runaround for literally no reason. And in my opinion, yes, she's absolutely on the hook for those tickets. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. A very distant relative walked into our house without us knowing about it and acted as if he was inspecting our house. And honestly, after it all went down, I'm still amazed by this guy's audacity, and I really hope he never comes back ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live in a house with my boyfriend and my dad, and yesterday my boyfriend's niece wanted to hang out with me after school, so he dropped her off to hang out with me and told me either him or his mom will pick her up. Now, I had to leave work at about 6 o'clock p.m., and my boyfriend didn't get off work until about 8 o'clock p.m. My dad got home at around 7 o'clock p.m. and was having dinner when my boyfriend's sister came to pick the girl up with her husband. Well, without any kind of notice, an uncle was there with them as well. The sister and her husband were both standing in the living room calling for their daughter. However, the uncle, without asking for consent, walked right through our house. Now, it wouldn't be a problem if he stopped at the living room or even like the kitchen or the backyard. However, the uncle legitimately just went through the house like he was doing a house inspection, and even went straight to my dad's bedroom, my bedroom, and my personal bathroom and closet, opening all the room doors, and walked through our house inside and out and made comments about the house. Now, my dad didn't stop him because he heard it was my boyfriend's uncle and just didn't want to be rude. But the next day, my dad told me and my boyfriend about it, and my boyfriend was like, "What? I'm not even close to that uncle. He's a far relative." As for me, he is literally just a stranger because I've never met him and I just don't know him. I just felt annoyed and uncomfortable knowing a random old man went through my room and looked through my stuff without asking me or even knowing about it. I'm just so mad that I swear if I ever meet that old man again in the future, I don't know if I could be respectful to him like I usually do with older people. I mean, how on earth can someone be this rude and obnoxious? I'm honestly still mad thinking about it. Now, fast forward, and my boyfriend actually texted his sister to confront the uncle about it, and he said he was just looking for a restroom and was just checking out the house because he heard we bought it for a cheap price. But again, he could have just asked for a restroom instead of walking around and opening doors like that. And we as the homeowners were not home to let him have the permission to walk around checking it like that. Furthermore, he lives out of state and only visited for a couple of days. We do not know him like that, and he said he just wanted to see his nephew's new house. I'm honestly speechless because we can't really do anything else since it's already done, and all I can do is just get a camera and a smart door lock, because what this guy did is absolutely insane. Yeah, I think I would lose my mind if someone walked into my house and just started looking through all of my rooms. Seriously, your dad should have stopped him and been like, wait a second, why are you going through the house? Or at least asked him like, hey, what are you doing? This is weird. Because under no circumstance should somebody that you've never met before be doing that, especially if it's not your home. Like, that is really weird. So I think the only silver lining here is that your boyfriend was like, hey, what is your problem? Why did you do that? Because this behavior is like super creepy. Who knows if he put a camera in your house or something like that, or like stole something that you don't know about. And the fact that the other people there were just kind of like letting this happen is also really weird. Why would you not say something to the uncle and be like, hey, what are you doing? Come back. You can't go through their house. So yeah, I think getting a camera of some kind or some kind of like smart lock really would be a good idea, because what this guy did, in my opinion, is super creepy. An entitled Karen tries to cut in line at the emergency room and pretends that she's partially blind just to try and get what she wants. But despite her stupid antics that she's displaying, the receptionist at this front desk doesn't take any of her garbage and ends up putting this Karen in her place in a way that I honestly will never forget. Here's what happened. So a couple of weeks ago, I was at the emergency room waiting to be seen when an old entitled Karen walks in, goes to the counter, and says that she needs to be seen immediately. The receptionist, who maintained her calm the entire time, said this Karen would have to fill out the intake forms and wait in the lobby until it's her turn. And there were about 4 or 5 of us already there ahead of her. But she insisted that she needs to be seen right away because it's an emergency. She would not elaborate on the issue, but she looked perfectly fine, or at least well enough that she could wait and argue with the staff. The receptionist does the usual, I understand ma'am, but other people were here first routine, and tells her again that she needs to fill out the forms. Now at this point, this Karen says that she can't see, that her vision is too blurry, so the receptionist will have to fill out the forms for her like she's some kind of secretary for this Karen. Well, she's told this isn't allowed and that she will need to sit down and fill them out herself. Now at this point, this Karen does the usual thing and starts raising her voice so that everyone can hear how she's being disrespected and how the service here is terrible and all the other usual lines you would expect. She refuses to leave the counter as she fills out the forms and begins to cry the fakest of fake cries I've ever heard in my life. And she was doing this all while whimpering, nobody wants to help me. And she was saying this on repeat over and over again. She proceeds to drop all her cards and items from her purse on the ground on purpose, and then takes her time to pick them up just to hold everybody up around her. Now, just as a reminder, this is the emergency room. But eventually, she takes her sweet time to fill out the form and hands it in with absolute disgust, saying again how no one wants to help out an old lady these days. She then proceeds to sit right next to me, pull out her phone, and read off of it while she waits. So clearly, this Karen was absolutely lying about being blind. I will never understand why people act like this. Like, quite legitimately, it is so weird to me. Like, I can understand if you're having an actual emergency where like you're bleeding or you have a very obvious broken bone or like somebody is actually passing away right then and there. But seriously, this is not one of those cases. This Karen wanted to get ahead of everybody else and didn't care about anyone else in line. And I mean, come on, you have to know that you're gonna be waiting in line if you go to the emergency room. Like, that's pretty common knowledge, right? At least in America where I'm from, like when you go to the emergency room, you're gonna be there for a while. Like, you are dedicating at least 8 hours in that hospital pretty much no matter what. So for this Karen to be so indignant and then be like, oh, well, I can't see, you're gonna have to fill it out for me. It's just so unbelievably entitled, and it's like, no, you can read, you absolutely can. You probably drove over here, you're just lying and you want to be entitled. So good for the receptionist for having just ice in her veins and being like, no, you're gonna have to fill it out yourself. Because if that were me, that Karen literally would have driven me up a wall, because that is not something that I personally handle very well in the slightest. My adult sister refuses to do any chores in the house, leaving me and my mom to clean up after her constantly. But now that I've decided to take a stand and refuse to do anything for her, I'm now receiving so much backlash that I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. I'm 25 years old and I have a sister that's the same age who stubbornly refuses to do any real chores around the house. It's not just that she doesn't help, but she also makes significant messes and then casually expects someone else to clean up after her. Or somehow she finds someone else to blame. I thought that was nuts, so I never cleaned up for her, but my mom started getting mad at me for not doing so. And my dad also says I should just do it and I'm the one causing the problem. My mom has been very controlling to the point that I think she appointed herself herself in charge of chores around the house because she thinks we can't do it to her standards. But because of this, neither me or my sister learned to clean very well. But the difference is that I'm an adult and I felt guilty, and she eventually let me clean some things. The difference is that my sister comfortably expects my mom to clean up after her, and my mom started getting mad that I don't do what she does when it comes to cleaning up for my sister. I refuse to cave and do it for her until my dad gets on my case. My sister is very entitled and is constantly forgetting and being late and not doing chores all the way, and other issues with basic housework. She also has broken things around the house, left messes on the counter for others to clean up, and she acts baffled when someone tries to tell her to clean up after herself. My mom sometimes gets to telling her that she should clean, but eventually she caves and gives up, and the chores fall down to me. And I think that this is a problem because I shouldn't have to clean up after her. But also, when she doesn't do something correctly or leaves a mess, when it's my turn, it's time to clean twice as hard because she messed everything up. I genuinely don't know why she does this. Maybe she doesn't feel guilty about not helping like I do, and I remember my mom making empty threats when we were kids, so I can imagine her becoming bold because there were no consequences. And I don't think we were disciplined, but I feel like as adults we should understand that we should help out. She recently got a job but doesn't even contribute to rent, and she uses that as an excuse for why she can't help. My dad wants no part in the discussion, despite him being the only one that I think can authoritatively tell her what to do, since she doesn't respect any of us. Obviously, I'd like to eventually move out, but right now I just can't do it. I feel like it's unfair that I get saddled with my sister's messes, and I'm just further disrespected by everyone involved. I tried Googling things about discipline, but the links were just all about children, and mostly by boomers upset that they can't hit their kids or whatever nowadays. I'm just tired of feeling like a maid to my own family members. It's making me dislike her more and more, and I've minimalized speaking to her because of this. But I don't even think that she cares about that. I feel like I'm Cinderella to a biological sister. What should I do? Okay, for starters, this situation sucks and I really feel for you. Like seriously, you're just trying to get by and your sister is making your life a living nightmare. The parents don't discipline her and they're like, oh my god, just do the chores for her. You're making things a problem by doing nothing. And they're shifting the blame to you for not cleaning up after your sister, when in reality, the problem is with your sister and not you. It seems like they're only going to you because you're like the easy way out, because you're at least agreeable to some extent and you're acting like an adult. But your sister, on the other hand, is acting like a teenager, and this is not fair for you in the slightest. So if I was in your shoes, I would start doubling my work hours just to try and find a new place to live. I would do everything possible to make sure I make enough money so that I can get out of that house and never look back, because what you're describing sounds like a nightmare, and I would not want to deal with that in the slightest. My entitled parents demand that I give up my baby to my twin sister, as they claim that she would be a better parent than I ever would as a single mom. Things have gotten so bad that they said they would cut me out of the family if I don't sign away my rights to my child over to my sister. Here's what happened. So I'm in a really tough spot and I could use some outside perspective. I'm a 28-year-old single woman, currently 7 months pregnant and living on my own. My sister and I are twins, and she's the golden child of our family, always getting special treatment, praise, and the best of everything. Growing up, she was the perfect daughter in my parents' eyes, while I often felt like the overshadowed one. It was like our entire childhood revolved around her being showered with gifts and accolades, while my achievements were downplayed or ignored. Well, she's now married, and I've heard her husband is great, but they've been struggling with infertility, and the situation has now taken an insane turn. Recently, our parents approached me with a shocking proposal. They want me to give my baby to my sister and her husband once it's born, because they believe that she deserves it more. My heart sank when they expressed this. They argue that since she has a stable home and a family, she is better suited to raise a child than I am, given that I'm just a single mother. This left me feeling heartbroken and furious. I get that they are excited about being grandparents, but I've worked hard to prepare for this baby, and I firmly believe that my child deserves to be raised by me. Sure, I might not be a picture-perfect family in their eyes, but I have love to give and I can provide for my baby. I thought my refusal would put an end to their unreasonable expectations, but instead they escalated things. They staged a family meeting where they tried to pressure me further. My mom even went as far as to give me the ultimatum, saying to me, if you don't do this for your sister, we will withdraw all support for you and will stop considering you a part of this family. And this completely blindsided me, and I was left feeling more isolated than ever. I've since expressed my clear stance. My child is not a pawn in this ridiculous game. I've told my parents I'm not giving up my baby, and frankly, I was surprised they would ever even ask, but I'm worried that my refusal might permanently fracture our already strained family ties. So am I the jerk for saying no to my parents and refusing to give my baby baby to my sister? What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster has a lot of updates they want to share. Here's what they had to say. Okay, I want to say thanks for the comments as I didn't expect this to blow up so much. A common theme is people suggesting me to either move or get cameras, which I currently can't do either. I can't get cameras because during the fight that caused me to move out of my parents' home, they broke my laptop and I can't afford a new one yet. I also can't move because I can't afford a new house. I'm still recovering from buying my current one because that was only 5 months ago. Thankfully though, they don't know where I live. And I also forgot to include this, but my sister and her husband also live with my parents. I also see that people keep asking me why I need to be told if I'm the jerk or not, and if I need to cut them off. It's because part of me just can't help but feel insane guilt for cutting them off or even denying my child grandparents and an aunt and uncle. But all of this is so frustrating and I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, this is legitimately a crazy situation, but I think it's one that the original poster slowly began to figure out. In some further updates, they said that they finally did decide to cut them off, and they've pretty much blocked them everywhere. This even gets crazier because apparently the family is making up this story that the original poster agreed to carry the baby for her sister and husband. And I seriously find this absolutely crazy. Like, that is just insane in my opinion. Like, they're literally trying to take this baby from you. Like, that is all that's happening right now. And that is extremely concerning. Like, why are they so obsessed with this other sister getting this child instead of allowing the original poster to raise the child herself? Like, this is nuts. The original poster also said that they did find some really cheap cameras they can put up that basically connect to their phone. And that's a massive relief because these people clearly are like trying to work against you in this regard. So no, obviously you are definitely not the jerk. This situation is beyond irrational, and hopefully you can get away from these people and never deal with this garbage ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen treats me like garbage and is blatantly rude to me after she doesn't have her stuff together for an art gallery she was trying to get into. And I'm honestly so done being treated like this, and I really hope I never deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. So I work in an art gallery that hosts exhibitions for the Biennale of Venice. A lady comes in and shows me an online ticket, telling me that later on a friend of hers will be coming in. So I scan her ticket and it's all good. Well, fast forward, and in comes Karen, loudly and rudely complaining of how hard it is to find the palace, while also making sure that she shows off plenty of swear words in these sentences. She then shows me an online ticket. Now, I tried to scan it, but it didn't go through. I realized that she must have been friends with the aforementioned lady, so I tell her, oh, this must have been your friend's ticket. Can you scroll down to the next ticket on the PDF, please? Well, she did, but then she proceeded to keep her phone too far away from my scanning device. So I extended my hand, signaling for her to give it to me since she was busy talking with her friend who had come back up to the entrance. When she handed the phone, I mistakenly touched the screen, moving the PDF around. I fumbled for a moment trying to find the barcode, and she said in this nasty tone, oh, just keep it, I don't have all day. So I moved a couple of steps away, but I was done by then. So I gave her the phone back. This whole interaction lasted maybe a couple of minutes. When Karen and her friend came back down, I caught the following conversation. The friend said that someone else couldn't come with them because they had phlebitis, and this Karen actually had the audacity to chime in and be like, oh, he's a jerk. Now, maybe she didn't mean to say that he's a jerk for having phlebitis, but it most definitely sounded like it. And I'm honestly just so done with Karens like this because they make my job a living nightmare. Yeah, this is really some unacceptable behavior because seriously, all she had to do was show the ticket and then move on. But instead, she literally took the rude route and was just obnoxious the entire time. Like seriously, it doesn't take that much to be a decent human being and be like, oh, I'm sorry, here's my ticket. And as someone who's done their time in customer service, I've kind of learned that some people literally are just miserable people. Like literally, there is nothing that you can do to try and make them happy. You could be handing them gold bars and they would complain about the wait. And this entitled Karen absolutely fits the bill. A group of entitled Karens ruin a wedding by getting completely wasted and getting up in the face of the workers at the venue. Things got so bad that not only were the cops nearly called, but the bride and groom themselves had to tell these people that they needed to leave. Here's what happened. So to start things out, this happened about 3 months ago. I work in catering, and at an event back around Father's Day weekend, there was a wedding that was possibly the group's worst encounter with a guest. The evening started off rough with a wedding coordinator rearranging the tables, so all the tables, numbers, and guests were off sync with the paperwork that we had. When it came time to serve dinner, we were all confused on where to go and who to serve. Tables were getting half served and they were getting mixed meals. And sure, this wasn't a huge problem and it was fixable, but that was just a precursor for what's to come. During dinner, there was this one guest who stopped one of my coworkers and wanted to exchange their meal, even though they started eating eating a filet that had already been cooked at medium. Now that's not a problem, and we change meals whenever we need to. They start eating the second meal, and they wanted the same thing. So they stopped the same coworker and asked to take it away, as they then started eating off of their husband's plate instead. After dinner and some cleanup, that guest, who we found out was the bride's aunt, decided to eat off the maid of honor's dinner plate while she was off dancing. One coworker, the same one that she stopped before, told her not to eat that food, especially because she was not given permission to eat it. Now everything was quiet until we put out a late night station with soft pretzels and some dipping sauces. As we were waiting for the pretzels to heat up, we put the dipping sauces out on the table so everyone knew more food was coming. And then the aunt comes up to the station with her daughter and starts to put the dipping sauces straight onto plates. But the problem is that we didn't even put out spoons. They were using their fingers and hands to put the sauces onto the plates. And 3 different coworkers, including the manager of the event, saw the 2 ladies do this, in which the 2 of them declined that they even did it. So we had no choice but to throw away all the sauces. The aunt then went up to one of the coworkers, who is one of the nicest people I've ever worked with, and starts getting in her face and starts calling her a liar and a drunk. And it got to a point where that coworker wanted to call the police on the aunt. When we thought it was over, the aunt comes to the back of the house asking for the manager. Well, the manager comes out and the aunt starts getting in the manager's face, asking for names of people, and starts calling the manager a drunk and a liar, even though there were multiple people who saw her do this. The aunt then said things like, "Oh, let me see it on camera. I'm gonna leave a bad review on Yelp," while also adding in that she works this hotel in Chicago. And while this was going on, I was standing as my manager's impromptu bodyguard. As a result of that, she was cut off from the bar, and the bride and groom were told about the incident. The couple then decided to have the 2 ladies leave their wedding and escorted them out of the wedding venue. And the bride and groom were firmly on our side with everything that happened. To top the night off, at some point while everyone was dancing, the DJ was getting a drink from the bar, and a different guest decided to go behind the DJ booth and change the entire wedding playlist. Well, the DJ definitely saw this and yelled so loud at the guest that it was heard over the music. And obviously, shortly after that, the guest left. It was one of, if not the worst experience I had with a guest of a wedding, and it was also my first experience with a Karen, and honestly, it kind of lived up to the hype. Wow, I can't imagine acting like that at somebody else's wedding, and then trying to be like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get all of you in trouble. I'm gonna leave a bad review." It's like, dude, this is not the time. This is not your wedding. It's not your event. Why would you act so selfish and so insane? Like, this only makes the bride and groom look bad, and it only led to them getting kicked out of the venue altogether. Like, that is not gonna help anybody. So truly, people who act like this are absolute scumbags, because their behavior was truly unacceptable. My entitled uncle takes advantage of my grandparents by practically forcing them to do everything for him in his life. And I'm honestly so concerned, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my uncle takes advantage of my grandparents, and it makes me so angry. It's gone on for many years, and we're talking like 20 plus years. They're in their mid-70s, and my grandma has major health problems as well, so she doesn't feel good most days. First off, he's 47 years old and has never had a place of his own. He has no physical or mental disabilities preventing him in anything, and he's never even had a bank account. My grandparents keep his money in an envelope and gives it to him when he needs it, or buys him whatever he needs. She said they can't let him have the money because he's too nice of a person and will give all his money to friends or other women. But I told them that he is a grown man, and if he can't handle his money responsibly, then that's his issue. She then said that he's not an adult yet, so I said, okay, then what age will he become an adult? But she just responded by saying that she isn't sure, and he hasn't even had a job in about 10 years, but she somehow still says that he has money left over from a job that he had at an auto shop 10 years ago. He's been on and off many substances, if you know what I mean, and I've even personally seen him going through withdrawals. Some of the other family knows, but won't confront my grandparents about it. But you know what? I do, and I think that's why we fight a lot. One of my exes from many years ago, who is actually great, had contacted me 2 years ago or so and said that he in fact does a lot of substances, and then she asked my grandma if she could please do an intervention, and my grandma then got super mad and said nothing bad is going on. My grandma even says that they can't put him in a rehab because they can't afford it. He and his ex ended up breaking up and going separate ways because she said she couldn't deal with it, so I decided to stay in touch with her. When he is home, my grandparents will take his car keys because, according to them, he hangs with a wrong crowd who try to take his money and drive his truck. Well, he ended up selling his truck, and I had suggested that they use that money to put him into rehab. But they said they're not going to do that to him because he doesn't do anything wrong. He ended up buying a new truck with the money, and they eventually give him his keys back when he starts to get angry, and that's because his withdrawals are over and he needs another fix, so he gets agitated in that moment. He also only ever moves in with women. Most of the time, he's living with my grandparents if he doesn't have a woman to stay with. He hasn't had a job in many years, and when he does have a job, he ends up getting fired because he stops showing up or he just doesn't like it. My grandma literally will call in sick for him because he refuses to get out of bed. She will lie to his boss and say that he isn't feeling well, and he just sleeps all day and night. In fact, he only wakes up to use the bathroom, watch TV, or eat their food. He will disappear for weeks on end. Then he'll come back and clearly be going through withdrawals. But my grandma will say that he just has a stomach virus. But I said to her, okay, so he's getting a stomach virus every few weeks? And she actually said yes to me. They are completely fine with him not working, but have extremely high expectations for me. I mean, man, if I even use a day of PTO or call in sick, I get a lecture by saying, you're just wanting to sit around and be lazy. If you get fired, we ain't helping you with nothing. You should never be missing a day of work. Now, he has currently been living with a woman for about 3 years or so, but she recently kicked him out, and my grandma said that she feels bad for him. My grandma always says that she wishes he could find a good woman to take care of him, but I tell her it's not a woman's responsibility to take care of a grown man. The lady ended up letting him move back in, but my grandma said that she tries to take his money and uses him, so apparently she has to keep it or he will just give it all away. When really what I think is going on is that the lady probably just wants his help to pay bills there and to get a job, and she's probably only asking for money so she can pay the bills. She said, oh, he's such a kind-hearted person. He would give the shirt off his back to anybody and people just take advantage of it. For about a year now, they do all his grocery shopping for him and hand delivers it to him where he's living about 20 minutes away. I have even seen the text messages that he sends her, and he sends them text messages saying that he's needing groceries again and then sends them a list of what he wants, and then they go and buy it and deliver it to him once a week. My grandma said that his truck is broke down so he can't get any food, but I said, can he do his own grocery delivery from Walmart or another place instead of you guys having to drive back and forth like every week? She said to me, he doesn't know how to do that, and that's too hard for him. He would then text them stuff like, I guess I'm just gonna have to start riding a bike to get food, but it's so hot outside, I will probably get sick. And it's always a major guilt trip, saying things like, I have the best parents that anyone could ask for. I told my grandma he has it made. He doesn't have to work, they are his personal shoppers, so he doesn't even have to go to the grocery store or even place orders for the groceries. He doesn't even have to pay his own bills. They just process the payments for him. She then said to me, he doesn't know how to do any of that stuff. And I said to her, well, I'm sure he could be taught. You need to allow him to learn and grow. But she said to me, he wouldn't be able to understand how to do it. So at this point, I'm just majorly concerned. The day they become incapable of doing these things for him, or when the day comes that they pass away, the rest of our family is not going to do any of this stuff for him. He will truly crumble and fall apart. He doesn't have to lift a finger for anything. They handle all of his bills, stuff like his car insurance and his phone bill, so he's never had to make a payment on his bills. He's never even had a bank account. But I can tell you one thing, the day that they stop and become incapable of doing stuff for him, I promise you I will not allow this to happen anymore. He will finally have to take responsibility of his life and finally do things for himself. Wow, this story is insane to me because, like, seriously, this guy is in his 40s. He absolutely is an adult. Like, what is your grandma's problem? It's crazy to me that she's ignoring all these problems in his life while also like hyper focusing on the fact that he can't handle himself. Like, this guy is a total leech and he just doesn't do anything with his life. He has no job. He doesn't even have a bank account, which like baffles me at the age of 47. Like, that's something you get when you're like a teenager. Like, how does he not have a bank account? And worst of all is the grandparents are literally enabling this. They're allowing this to happen and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna take care of him. He can't do anything for himself. Meanwhile, your uncle's like, yeah, I can't do anything for myself. And he literally has it made. He just doesn't have to do anything now. So in my opinion, I think you've definitely said your piece and you've done everything you can to try and get through to your grandma, but clearly it's not working. And that is definitely not your fault. It's not your problem that they don't get it because the way your uncle's acting is truly insane. And I think you have it right. When your grandparents pass away and they no longer wait on this guy hand and foot, it is truly going to be a clear wake-up call. My entitled great uncle has squandered every opportunity that he's ever had and is now taking away from the entire family in a way that I never expected. Here's what happened. So my great uncle retired recently from his illustrious career as a TV cameraman for a TV station that doesn't transmit outside the country he lives in. He lives in a house that has been in our family for 3 generations, and it is a sentimental property as our family bought bought it after moving north from the South during the Great Migration. He lived there his entire life and paid his mom $300 in rent very briefly, which even back then was basically free. Then, after his mom and dad passed away, he lived there rent-free as it was already paid off. But now, he decided that he wants to sell the house and move to an income-controlled apartment and has enlisted the help of my grandma, my mom, and my mom's cousin. I helped my mom there and I had so many questions. This house was really nice. It had 2 bathrooms and a ton of bedrooms. It was in town and it had fiber internet, and it was zoned to be 2 separate apartments. Why would he sell this? In short, he says he cannot afford the repairs, but honestly, why would that be the case? He worked as a TV cameraman for an awful news station that doesn't even broadcast outside of our country for like 40 years, and he said it himself that he did it because it was easy, despite not being paid very well at all. He eats out all the time because he can't figure out how to use the appliances, and he literally has no credit despite being 62 years old. He had to ask my grandma to loan him money and co-sign on loans for repairs. The biggest loan he ever took out was a complete waste of money. He had to get boilers fixed and even put off fixing the electrical to do so. Boilers are expensive to fix as not many people work on them anymore, and I facepalmed at this because if he fixed the electrical, he could have gotten a mini split system and had superior heating and cooling. He also has plumbing issues that he can't afford to fix, and he cites this as his reason for selling it. Now, you might be wondering, how much money does he want to sell this big house in town for? Well, he wants to sell it for $50,000. You can't even buy a trailer for that anymore. He then plans to move into an income-controlled apartment despite being against government handouts. Now, let me explain. I know someone might be saying it's his house and he can sell it if he wants, and I do not deny that he has legal right to sell it. However, I feel that since he only has this house in the first place because of the generosity of our family and their desire to help the next generation of our family, that he has an ethical obligation to do the same. For example, older people when they vote for anti-environmental policies. That is their right as an American to do so, but I think we can all agree that they should not do that. One idea that my mom and I had was to try and get him to put off selling it until he passed away, thus triggering my state's next of kin laws and having the house go to my grandma by default. But then we learned a new problem with that. He has a will and left the house to my mom's cousin that I mentioned above. And a few problems with that is that for starters, he is 42 years old and he's currently unemployed. He has only one job as a grocery bagger, and as you can tell by that description, he is not very smart. He has no wife or kids, only a girlfriend who is even dumber than he is and supports the 2 of them working at McDonald's. He only makes his money by pressuring my grandma into giving him money, and he is likely to just sell the house to some kind of developer. For reference, my mom is his niece, so just as close to him as my mom's cousin. My mom has a stable career, a husband who works in construction and electrical, and has 2 kids. So any logical person would give the house to my mom. She can afford to take care of it better, and she has 2 kids. Also, if my post sounds selfish, I would argue that selling the house is against his best interest in the long run, because what is clearly going to happen, especially with his rising medical cost, is that he will have issues paying rent and end up being on the street. So my great uncle is acting super entitled and very selfish, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I can see where the original poster is coming from, but also their attitude about this entire thing is really kind of jaded. It really does sound like you have sour grapes that your family's not getting the house, and that your great uncle probably just wants to sell it off and get rid of it. But on that end, if your family really wants it, then why don't you guys buy it? Like, that might be a good solution so you can keep the house and then your mom and your dad can take care of it accordingly. But for you to act like, oh yeah, I deserve this house better than my other family members, like that in my opinion is really weird and it's not a good look. And just because someone works as a bagger at a grocery store doesn't mean they're stupid. Like, that comment is so uncalled for. So sure, your great uncle might be moving things forward in his own self-interest, but in my opinion, if anyone's acting entitled in this situation, I definitely think it's you and not your extended family. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.